The CEO's wife is very wild, and the young husband is spoiled. Zhang Ling is 23 years old, 180 centimeters tall, 67 kilograms in weight, and graduated from college. In his first interview, the interviewer asked him to go into a small room and look in the mirror to show off his muscles. Little did he know that this was a two-sided mirror, so called Lu Bu among men and Red Hare among horses. On the other side of the mirror was the company's female president Lin Xiyue, 35 years old, 168 centimeters tall, and 56 kilograms in weight. She watched Zhang Ling showing off his figure, and his handsomeness made her fidget. Decided to take him down. She turned off the device so that Zhang Ling could see her. Do you have a girlfriend? No. Very good, are you willing to marry me? Zhang Ling found this beautiful young woman attractive, which was his weakness. Chapter 1, the interview turned into a blind date. Sick mother, gambling father, studying younger brother, and the broken man. The male protagonist has never encountered such an event. At the interview venue in District B of Jianghua Group. Damn. Is this company's interview really so strict? We have to strip down and show off our muscles in front of a mirror. Zhang Ling muttered as he took off his clothes. The reason he thought the interview was strict was because the person who had interviewed him just left in less than 2 minutes. Having already passed the interview, he didn't expect this extra step. There was a prompt next to the mirror: success belongs to confident men. Har. Good thing I grew up eating beef and drinking mare's milk. My physique is so impressive, even I envy myself. Zhang Ling admired himself in the mirror, posing like a bodybuilder and changing angles to show off. Suddenly, a line of text appeared in the mirror. Height, 180 centimeters, weight, 76 kilograms, handsome beyond belief. Seeing this text, Zhang Ling felt even more confident. Little did he know, this was a two-way mirror. Behind the mirror, a woman sat, secretly laughing. She was Lin Xiyue, the company's female CEO, observing him with a hint of interest, occasionally glancing at his resume. Lin Xiyue took a deep breath and nodded. Zhang Ling remained confident in his physique. Today's interview was crucial for him. If he didn't pass, he'd have to go back home and help his father herd cattle. When he first entered university, the family only had a little over 100 cows, but in 3 years, the number had grown to tens of thousands. He didn't want to waste the knowledge he gained from university. However, this interview was also of special significance to Lin Xiyue because she planned to use this opportunity to get herself married. Over the years, very few people had stood in front of the mirror. She was very pleased with this one. Suddenly, the mirror flashed and became indistinguishable from ordinary glass. It was then that Zhang Ling saw a mature woman looking straight at him. Instinctively, he tried to cover himself. What's going on? Why is there another woman? Zhang Ling didn't yet know who she was. In his eyes, she was just the interviewer. Lin Xiyue looked at Zhang Ling's 8-pack abs, the faint line of his V-shaped torso, and his clothes that were about to burst. Do you have a girlfriend? Zhang Ling puffed out his chest and replied seriously, report, no, I do not have a girlfriend. Lin Xiyue smiled slightly and said something shocking, would you marry me? Marry? Zhang Ling found it too unbelievable. He had just come for an interview, hoping to find a job he liked. How did it turn into a blind date? And he almost ended up completely naked. Yes, Lin Xiyue said, her gaze unwavering as she looked at him. Zhang Ling stared at her face, stammering, I came for an interview, not a blind date. Lin Xiyue casually sat on a chair and crossed her legs, scrutinizing Zhang Ling. Do you think I'm too old, not attractive, or lacking in charm? At this point, Zhang Ling was completely stunned. It was his first interview, and to top it off, with a mature woman like her, this was already his soft spot. Yet she was asking if he would marry her. He couldn't hide his nervousness. Ahem, you're very beautiful, but I really came for an interview. Stop pretending. Your physique is great, and you're practically bursting out of your clothes. It's settled then. Come to the Civil Affairs Bureau in the West City tomorrow morning and don't forget to bring your household register. Those words seemed to have some magical power, and Zhang Ling strangely found himself agreeing. Okay, sure. Lin Xiyue stood up and walked to the door, speaking to her female assistant, Wan, announced that the interview is over. Zhang Ling scratched his head, still in a daze, and put his shirt back on before walking out. Two undergraduates, unable to suppress their frustration, blocked Zhang Ling. Did you take some shortcut? Why did you stay inside for so long while we were kicked out in less than a minute? Zhang Ling frowned and asked, did you guys show your muscles too? Show, what muscles? Hearing this, Zhang Ling realized that perhaps only he had gone through this particular step. At that moment, Lin Xiyue's assistant Wanwan approached and said to the undergraduates, don't be upset, Mr. Zhang is someone our CEO values greatly. Also, our interview isn't just about qualifications or professional ability, there are other considerations. The others, hearing this, became even more curious and speculated about what made Zhang Ling so special. Mr. Zhang, please follow me, the female assistant said politely. Seeing they had no chance left, the undergraduates gradually left. Zhang Ling followed the female assistant into a meeting room. She occasionally flashed a smile at him, which made him feel embarrassed. Mr. Zhang, you're applying for the PLC programming position, right? Millimeter. Zhang Ling nodded. So, how much do you think you should earn per month? I think at least 8,000, Zhang Ling answered cautiously. 8,000? Don't you think that's too low? The female assistant slightly raised the corner of her mouth. 10,000. He added. Okay, your salary will be 10,000. You can start the day after tomorrow. Damn, why didn't he mention 12,000 just now? Zhang Ling swallowed hard. This salary, is it up to me to decide? If you feel it's not enough, we can increase it. Is this for real? You can't be too greedy. They say you can't rush to eat hot tofu. That's enough. I'll come to work the day after tomorrow, right? Millimeter, tomorrow you're supposed to marry our CEO, so you'll come the day after tomorrow. CEO. That was Lin Xiyue, the CEO of Jianghua Group. Was she serious just now? Zhang Ling emphasized. Our CEO's personality is like that. If she likes you and wants to marry you, then she's serious, the assistant said confidently. Zhang Ling felt like he was dreaming. He squinted his eyes to focus. Seeing his hesitant expression, the female assistant reminded him seriously. By the way, Mr. Zhang. After you start working, it's best to pretend you don't know the CEO. You saw how it is if others find out about your relationship, it will only lead to jealousy. You don't want to be pointed at behind your back, do you? I understand. If there's nothing else, I'll leave now. Wait, this union pay card is from the CEO. She asked me to give it to you. Buy whatever you want. The assistant handed him a union pay card. Chapter 2, 2 million is just pocket money. Zhang Ling took the union pay card and paused for a moment, stunned. So quickly, they are giving him money to spend. Poverty truly limits imagination. He suddenly remembered that he knew nothing about this Ms. Lin. Zhang Ling stammered, she should have children by now, right? Don't worry, Mr. Zhang, Ms. Lin doesn't have any children, the assistant replied. He thought he was about to become a father, but since she didn't have any children, her rush to register for marriage must be because her family is pressuring her. This plot seemed familiar, he'd seen similar short dramas before. Still, he had to ask clearly, what if these rich people were just using him as a backup to provoke someone? On their wedding day, he could end up with a divorce letter. That would be a huge embarrassment. So, does Ms. Lin have a boyfriend or fiancé? The assistant chuckled. Mr. Zhang, you're so funny. You've already agreed to marry Ms. Lin. Aren't you her fiancé now? You're right, why did I agree to this? Zhang Ling mumbled. Of course, our Ms. Lin is beautiful, and with a great figure, you must have liked her. You couldn't take your eyes off her just now. That's true. Though it was through a glass mirror, when the reflective lights were turned off, his hormones spiked instantly. Ms. Lin was indeed a great beauty, but she looked so fierce. Would she be prone to domestic violence after marriage? And this card? Zhang Ling asked, eyeing the card in his hand. This card has 2 million yuan in it. It's your pocket money from Ms. Lin. You can spend it however you like, even buy a decent car if you want. 2 million as pocket money. Zhang Ling gritted his teeth and nodded. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Yes, Mr. Zhang, marrying Ms. Lin will make your life very happy, the assistant said with a smile. Zhang Ling smiled back. She's beautiful, rich, and happy sounds pretty normal. Turning, he walked out of the meeting room and entered the elevator. He realized that if he was going to marry the company's CEO tomorrow, he couldn't dress too poorly. Zhang Ling left Zhang Hui Group and went straight to a shopping mall. By the afternoon, he awkwardly rode his electric scooter back to his apartment. After graduation, Zhang Ling temporarily stayed in an apartment rented by his college roommate, Lu Chengwang. Lu Chengwang had been struggling to find a job recently but wasn't in a hurry. He spent all day playing tower defense games on his phone, completely immersed. On the bed, there were piles of strange books, like How to Make a Rich Woman Fall for Me and 101 Techniques to Handle a Rich Woman. Chengwang, I'm back, Zhang Ling called out while changing his shoes. Don't disturb me, I'm playing Dragon. Lu Chengwang said, his eyes glued to his phone screen as his fingers rapidly swiped across it. Zhang Ling had long gotten used to Lu Chengwang's obsession with his games. He walked into the bathroom, took a shower, and changed into new clothes, standing in front of the mirror, admiring himself. Wow, Zhang Ling, why do you look so fancy today? Lu Chengwang glanced up, seeing Zhang Ling's appearance, and couldn't resist teasing him. Zhang Ling turned around to face Lu Chengwang. I found a job, but the company is strict. I have to wear formal attire every day. Wait, you're working in a real estate agency? Lu Chengwang guessed. No, I'm. Zhang Ling started to explain but suddenly hesitated. Jianghua Group Chengwang had previously interviewed there. If he told him that not only did he pass the interview, but also that the female CEO chose him, Chengwang might drop his phone, leap off the bed, and strangle him. What? Where are you working? Lu Chengwang pressed, his curiosity piqued. Hey, you guessed right. I'm working in an agency, Zhang Ling lied helplessly. I knew it. This industry is so competitive now. If I can't find something soon, I'll go work as a security guard. Maybe a rich woman will take a liking to me. What do you think? Lu Chengwang said dreamily. So, those books by your bed. Zhang Ling pointed to the books on the bed. Well, what could he say? He was just going along with the flow. Maybe the CEO had some hidden reasons, and after they got married, he still had to pretend he didn't know her. Sighing, Zhang Ling couldn't help but wonder. Lu Chengwang proudly held up a book and shook it. Hey, don't look down on these books. When I find my rich woman, you'll understand. The books say there's a beauty in every book, and there's a golden house in every book. Zhang Ling didn't respond, but he found it amusing. He wasn't paying attention to what Chengwang was saying instead, he kept checking himself out in the mirror. Could this be a case of planting flowers but they don't bloom, yet the willow tree grows without effort? Knock knock knock. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Oh, it's probably the landlady, Lu Chengwang said, his eyes fixed on the door. Seeing that Chengwang didn't move, as if frozen, Zhang Ling had no choice but to walk up to the door and open it. In that moment, Zhang Ling felt like he had been hit with a rain of spit. It was like a sudden saliva shower. Lu, what's going on? Didn't we agree you'd pay the rent in a couple of days? It's been half a month now. Are you trying to force me to cut off your water and electricity? The landlady was yelling at them, her voice booming as though it could shake the entire house. Auntie, just give me a few more days. Once I get a job, I'll pay you immediately, Lu Chengwang said nervously. The landlady crossed her arms and shouted, What? More waiting? Just because you're not working, you think you can keep delaying rent? That's not how this works. Her loud voice made the whole place vibrate. Seeing this, Zhang Ling realized that Chengwang was so broke that he couldn't even pay the rent. How much is the rent? I'll pay it, Zhang Ling said. The landlady shot him a sideways glance. When did you move in with someone? The water fee is per person, and with your head tax, the rent for last month is 960 yuan. Auntie, wait a moment. I'll go downstairs and get the money for you. The landlady seemed used to being lied to. She prepared for this and pulled out a POS machine from her bag. Will this work? Yes, it works, Zhang Ling replied. He inserted the card, swiped, and the landlady's fierce expression disappeared instantly. This young man is so straightforward. If you need anything, just ask, I won't disturb you anymore. Her attitude changed so quickly it was shocking. Zhang Ling watched the landlady walk away, her keys jingling as she strode off without a backward glance. Cheng Wang watched her retreating figure and sighed. If it weren't for the fact that she looks like a widow maker, I'd have taken her down by now. Chapter 4, We registered our marriage. My wife is 12 years older than me. Lin Xiyue smiled shyly, finding this person quite interesting, and reached out to hold Zhang Ling's arm. Let us go in. The two entered the Civil Affairs Bureau to register their marriage. The marriage registrar smiled as she took the materials they handed over, carefully examined their photos, and verified their names. When she saw the age column, one was 23 and the other was 35, a 12-year age gap. The registrar paused for a moment, then looked up at them with a radiant smile. You two are really a perfect match. Wish you a happy marriage and a long-lasting love. After speaking, she clapped a few times, the sound seemingly marking the beginning of a joyful chapter in their marriage and sealing their union with a sacred stamp. As they left the Civil Affairs Bureau, Zhang Ling looked down at the brand-new marriage certificate in his hand, feeling as though he was in a dream. He raised his head slightly and looked at Lin Xiyue beside him, softly asking, "Wife, shouldn't we find a place to talk?" His voice trembled a bit after all. The term wife sounded somewhat awkward to him, especially since she was a whole 12 years older. Lin Xiyue was momentarily stunned, a faint blush appearing on her face. It made sense they were married now, so calling her wife was natural, and she had long wished someone would call her that. But hearing herself being called wife made her involuntarily shiver, like an electric current running through her body. I was planning to handle some business at the company after registering, and then bring you home to meet my parents in the evening. But I didn't expect you, little one, to want to stick to me so soon. Wait a minute. The plot was going off track. Zhang Ling thought to himself, something seemed missing from this situation. The romance novels he'd read didn't go like this. According to common sense, shouldn't they first discuss important matters, like contracts? How did it jump straight to this point? Zhang Ling stared at Lin Xiyue, his eyes filled with countless question marks. You didn't plan on telling me why you married me? Like, maybe your family pushed you into it, or? Lin Xiyue couldn't help but laugh out loud, holding her stomach, clearly amused by his cute, confused expression. You, ha 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 ha, you're so funny. Lin Xiyue laughed so hard that tears almost came out. How can you be this cute? Just like her mother, she was probably influenced by all those dramatic storylines and had weird thoughts in her head. Oh, hey, did I say something wrong? Zhang Ling mumbled awkwardly, scratching his head. Honey, you're so funny. Let me tell you the truth. It's because I think you're handsome, and I fell for you instantly. I just wanted to claim you as mine. No other reason. No contracts. Zhang Ling looked bewildered. Contracts? You think marriage is just a game? You can marry when you want, and divorce when you want. We're legally married now. Look at you, all silly and cute today. I'll spend the day with you. Saying this, Lin Xiyue took out her phone and pressed the voice message button. Wanwan, just go to the company. I'm taking my little husband out to play today. He's still a bit dazed. As soon as the message was sent, Zhang Ling saw a sleek Lamborghini pull into the parking lot across from them. The window slowly rolled down, and a slender hand extended out, making an okay gesture. This completely surprised Zhang Ling. He had originally thought that Lin Xiyue was just whimsically going to get the marriage certificate. He figured he was worth about 2 million in terms of looks, but didn't expect her to be serious. Aren't you afraid that I agreed to marry you just for your money? Zhang Ling frowned, looking somewhat seriously at Lin Xiyue. Heh. Lin Xiyue raised the corner of her mouth in a smile that seemed to hold deeper meaning. Are you talking about the poor boy marrying a rich woman trope? Are you that kind of person? She raised an eyebrow, looking at him with a hint of curiosity. Zhang Ling was caught off guard, not expecting that the question he threw out would be so easily returned by Lin Xiyue. Now that things had come this far, there was no turning back. No matter what, this woman in front of him was now his wife. He decided to say something nice to calm her down. He took a deep breath, his eyes scanning Lin Xiyue from head to toe with a gentler look. I don't even know what happened, but somehow I ended up marrying you. The first time I saw you, it felt like destiny. It's as if there was an invisible thread connecting our hearts. That feeling is probably love. As he spoke, a shy smile appeared on his face. Lin Xiyue's eyes brightened when she heard Zhang Ling's words, and she didn't expect him to say something like that. She was now even more curious and decided to tease him a little. Really? Our marriage is a flash wedding, and we don't even know each other well yet. Lin Xiyue tilted her head and stared at Zhang Ling. This time, Zhang Ling became anxious. He patted his chest confidently. Of course. If you weren't good looking, even if you offered me 4 million, I wouldn't have agreed. I'm not the type of guy who cares only about money. Oh, so much integrity. Lin Xiyue crossed her arms, a skeptical smile on her face. I don't believe it. Really, this society values looks and figure. If the person you marry isn't attractive, life has no meaning. And it won't even get started. You're so beautiful, wife, every time I open my eyes, I get to see you. It feels like sunshine every day. Oh har har har, Lin Xiyue was taken aback at first, then burst out laughing. Honey, your words are so sweet. Zhang Ling laughed awkwardly. What was that just now? In his rush, he spoke without thinking. He hoped he didn't leave a bad impression on Lin Xiyue. He glanced at her secretly, relieved to see her laughing happily. They were standing at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, and people were coming and going. It wouldn't do to just stand there. If you don't mind the electric scooter, how about I take you for a ride? Then we can find somewhere to eat. Zhang Ling nervously looked at Lin Xiyue, wondering if she would mind considering how different his electric scooter was compared to her Lamborghini. Sure. Lin Xiyue didn't think much about it. She thought it would be fun. Zhang Ling's heart lifted, and he gently took Lin Xiyue's hand. The soft sensation made his heart flutter. He led her to the electric scooter, opened the trunk, and took out a female helmet. When Lin Xiyue saw the helmet, warmth spread through her heart. He had thought ahead, and she smiled as she took it. But when she was about to mount the scooter, a problem arose. She was wearing a short skirt, and the hem of it tightly clung to her legs, making it impossible to lift her leg onto the scooter. Honey. Lin Xiyue's face flushed slightly with embarrassment. Zhang Ling turned around and immediately understood the situation. Without a word, he steadied the scooter, quickly took off his jacket, and walked over to Lin Xiyue. Gently, he wrapped the jacket around her waist and tied it in a neat knot. Now, Lin Xiyue didn't have to worry about showing too much. Then, Zhang Ling bent down slightly, picked her up in a princess carry, and carefully placed her on the back seat of the scooter. Lin Xiyue's face turned bright red from the entire sequence of actions, her heart pounding fast. He's so strong. Lin Xiyue felt her face burning, gripping Zhang Ling's waist tightly. Chapter 5, Getting Married Before Falling in Love. In the past, whether it was the men she met through blind dates or those she had a chance to meet by chance, whenever she was with them, there was always an odd atmosphere that seemed to fill the air. Those men would always appear awkward in front of her, fidgeting and unsure of where to place their hands and feet. Whenever a man got too close, Lin Xiyue would instinctively pull away. However, Zhang Ling was different. In her eyes, Zhang Ling had a unique aura, a mix of elegance and rawness, which made him stand out in a way that was hard to explain. Perhaps it was because of their marital status, but she felt a sense of ease when she was with him. Lost in her thoughts, Lin Xiyue couldn't help but let out a chuckle. He. So where are we going? She asked. Zhang Ling glanced at the rearview mirror and casually replied, I'm taking you out for a meal. I can't have you starving while we wander around aimlessly. For Zhang Ling, this experience felt like something straight out of a wild, fantastical romance novel, perhaps even more absurd than anything he'd read. He only went to a job interview, and who would have thought that he'd be noticed by a female CEO and end up registering for marriage with her the very next day? He hadn't even had the chance to experience the sweet, romantic side of love. Instead, he had suddenly become someone's husband, all by accident. We've passed several intersections, but you still haven't stopped. You're not planning to take me straight to a hotel, are you? Lin Xiyue asked deliberately. Zhang Ling's heart skipped a beat. Huh? Is she hinting at something? So eager to get married, and now this. Even if we're going, at least let me fill my stomach first. Sweetheart, we just got married, and you need to give me some time to adjust. If we head straight to a hotel, I'll definitely be nervous, Zhang Ling said with a slightly embarrassed smile. Lin Xiyue couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. She had just been teasing him, but she didn't expect him to take it so seriously. He was such a straightforward guy, though it was actually kind of cute. There's a Western restaurant ahead, and the steak there is pretty good, Lin Xiyue said, grinning. Zhang Ling turned his head and saw a Michelin-starred restaurant. He couldn't help but click his tongue in surprise. Wow, steak. Is she trying to make sure I'm well fed before anything else? All right, he said, parking the car steadily. Just like when they arrived, Zhang Ling picked Lin Xiyue up from the backseat of the electric scooter. Her face flushed with the soft glow of the setting sun, the pink hue spreading from her cheeks to her ears. Perhaps it was due to the teasing earlier, or maybe her feelings for him were beginning to blossom, but Lin Xiyue exuded a certain charm and bashfulness. She gently untied the jacket around her waist and handed it to Zhang Ling. Thank you. Zhang Ling took the jacket, and the lingering warmth and faint fragrance filled the air, making his heart feel warm. So fragrant. Let's go inside, Lin Xiyue said quietly. Millimeter, Zhang Ling responded. A place like this was far beyond anything he had imagined. As they entered, the atmosphere inside felt like a dream. Sparkling crystal chandeliers cast soft light, reflecting off the polished marble floors. Before they could sit down, a chef in a pristine white uniform with a tall chef's hat walked over briskly. Hello. He had deep-set eyes and a prominent nose, holding two beautifully designed menus that looked like elegant envelopes. Lin Xiyue immediately switched to fluent English and began speaking with the chef. After a few exchanges, she turned to Zhang Ling. 2 steaks, darling, do you want anything else? Zhang Ling scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed, and said, how about some fried rice? Lin Xiyue paused for a moment before laughing. She tilted her head and spoke to the chef in English again. Before long, the sound of sizzling filled the air from a hot grill. The chef was expertly flipping and tossing ingredients, creating a spectacular scene that left Zhang Ling dazzled. Wow! Lin Xiyue didn't care much about when the steak would be ready. She was quietly watching Zhang Ling. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and asked softly, drink. Zhang Ling immediately pictured several scenes from TV dramas in his mind. He hesitated and asked, are you talking about Lafayette? Lin Xiyue smiled gently. Sure. Zhang Ling, subconsciously, touched his forehead. The luxury of the rich was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The waiter, moving like a trained gentleman, brought over the red wine. With a crisp pop, he uncorked the bottle and slowly poured the wine into the crystal glass, the deep red liquid swirling and releasing an enchanting fragrance. Sweetheart, I was planning to use this meal as a chance to talk to you about what's on my mind, Zhang Ling said, his tone suddenly serious. But with the chef standing right there, the atmosphere feels a little strange. Now I'm not sure whether I should say what I was going to. What's wrong with that? Darling, if you have something to say, just say it, Lin Xiyue responded with a smile. Zhang Ling hesitated before asking, am I being supported by you? Lin Xiyue burst out laughing. Har har. Darling, why would you ask that? Don't you still have a job? When you get paid, you can treat me to a nice meal, right? Zhang Ling's gaze dropped to the sparkling wine glass in front of him, his handsome face reflected in it, looking a little lost. After thinking for a moment, he sighed inwardly. She's not admitting it to save my face. I shouldn't have asked such a silly question, but this strange feeling in my chest has been bothering me, like a heavy stone pressing down on me. Looking at Lin Xiyue's sweet smile, Zhang Ling sighed again, accepting it. So what if I am being supported? After all, we're already married, and as she said, marriage is no child's play. Maybe it's just that everything happened so suddenly. And sweetheart, you're so beautiful and enchanting, radiating a feminine charm. It all feels like a dream, so unreal, Zhang Ling said, scratching his head awkwardly and looking at Lin Xiyue with sincere eyes. Darling, you're such a smooth talker. I'm liking you more and more, Lin Xiyue said, her eyes shining with affection, like the brightest star in the night sky. Sweetheart, let us drink to that, Zhang Ling said, raising his glass. Millimeter, Lin Xiyue smiled and lifted her glass, taking a small sip of the wine. Her gaze never left Zhang Ling, as if her eyes were glued to him. Zhang Ling, meanwhile, drank his wine in one gulp. Honestly, the taste wasn't all that special, but when he looked at Lin Xiyue's charming face, he couldn't help but feel like the wine had a different kind of flavor. Could this be the taste of love? Just then, a fresh and juicy steak was placed in front of him. Zhang Ling glanced at the small portion of steak. To his starving self, it barely seemed enough to fill a gap between his teeth. But Lin Xiyue, on the other hand, was savoring every bite, enjoying the joy of the meal. "Darling, tonight I'm taking you home," she said. Chapter 6: Eat a meal and feel the taste. "So fast?" Zhang Ling asked in surprise. "Well, my mom is still waiting at home. I told her that we will register for the marriage certificate today and take you home in the evening." "Our auntie? No, I should call her mom now. Is she also anxious for me to spend the wedding night with you tonight?" Zhang Ling said with a confused and somewhat shy look on his face. Pucci, when Lin Xiyue heard this, she quickly took a tissue to cover her small mouth, lowered her head, and laughed so hard that her whole body was shaking slightly. "Husband, did you take the joke I made on the road seriously?" Lin Xiyue finally stopped laughing and looked up, with tears of smile still in her eyes. "Joke?" Zhang Ling then realized that what Lin Xiyue had said before was just a joke to him. He felt that his reaction was a bit slow, but when he thought about it, although the flash marriage was already an established fact, the intimate things between husband and wife did require some time for both parties to get along and adjust. "If you think it's okay, stay here tonight and come to work with me tomorrow. However, we have to keep our distance when we get to the company. After all, we still have to be careful in the workplace." Lin Xiyue's eyes flashed with a hint of shyness and a little mischief. "Oh my god, this feels so amazing." Zhang Ling felt his heartbeat suddenly quicken. Are you serious?" "Yeah." Lin Xiyue nodded slightly. Zhang Ling blinked his eyes, and as if playing a movie in his mind, he re-examined his feelings from last night till now. It's a wonderful feeling, just like the tidal phenomenon. When the tide is high, it is surging and unstoppable. At the beginning, I was very embarrassed and didn't think about it that way at all. After all, I had only been with Lin Xiyue for less than a few hours. But now, why do I feel like my soul has been hooked away by her, and her shadow is all I can think of in my heart and eyes? Is this the charm of young women? I'm going to sleep with her tonight. I originally thought that I needed to spend some time getting along with her to find the feeling between husband and wife, but now it seems that's not necessary at all. Because at this moment, that feeling has flooded my heart. Honey, I'm going to the bathroom. Okay. Lin Xiyue nodded with a smile, watching Zhang Ling's departing back. Zhang Ling came to the bathroom, stood in front of the sink, and looked at himself in the mirror in a daze. Then he turned on the faucet, scooped up a handful of water, and splashed it hard on his face, splashing water everywhere. Looking at my wet self in the mirror. Yes. You are so handsome. He adjusted his hair in front of the mirror to make himself look more energetic. Lin Xiyue sat at the dining table, looking towards the bathroom from time to time, looking left and right. Strange? Why hasn't he come back after being gone for so long? As soon as she finished speaking, Zhang Ling's figure appeared in her sight. Zhang Ling was walking towards her in a hurry, his forehead was covered with sweat and his hair was a little wet. Honey, sorry to have kept you waiting. You went to the bathroom, why are you sweating all over? Lin Xiyue looked at him in surprise. Zhang Ling picked up the tissue in a panic and wiped his cheek roughly. He paused for a few seconds before explaining in a low voice. It's not well ventilated inside, and it's very hot. It shouldn't be like this. I have to talk to their manager later. This really affects the experience. No need to complain, forget it, the food here tastes pretty good, let's eat the food. Lin Xiyue looked at Zhang Ling and always felt that there was something strange about him, but she couldn't tell exactly what was strange about him. Well, your egg fried rice is getting cold now. It's okay, Zhang Ling said, and began to eat voraciously. Lin Xiyue looked at Zhang Ling and didn't think any more about it. She took a sip of red wine and took the opportunity to talk about some things she needed to consider later. Husband, even if you marry into our family in the future, you have to think carefully about the issue of children. What surname the child will take? My parents are very concerned about this. Lin Xiyue looked at Zhang Ling with a serious look. Whose surname should the child take? This is not simple, Zhang Ling was about to answer but was stopped in time by Lin Xiyue. It's fine to have just one child. I'm already 35, so please understand that. Zhang Ling looked into Lin Xiyue's eyes, and their eyes met. Yes, my wife is already 35 this year. If we want to have 2 children, even if everything goes well, it will take at least 2 years. For her, these 2 years have been like a difficult game between time and body. And those annoying stretch marks would crawl all over her smooth skin like vines. It makes me sad to think about this. Zhang Ling reached out and held Lin Xiyue's little hand and spoke warmly. The child was born from your belly. You are the one who suffered through the 10 months of pregnancy. I will obey you in everything, my wife. Lin Xiyue was very satisfied with this answer. Hubby, you are so considerate. I am a little touched. Wife, you don't mind that I was poor when I was young, but I will never let you down. Lin Xiyue nodded and felt the warmth in front of this young husband. Hubby, you really are considerate. I will always remember your thoughtfulness towards me. I will give you a gift later. Har har, it's only natural to feel sorry for your wife. Zhang Ling smiled, with a curious gleam in his eyes. What gift? I'm going to buy you a watch. When Zhang Ling heard this, his heart skipped a beat, and all those expensive and luxurious watch brands flashed through his mind, such as Patek Philippe, Richard Miller, etc. Those watches are very valuable and can be regarded as a great tool for showing off. He shook his head quickly. No, those watches are too flashy. Wearing them on your hands feels like hanging a big sign on your body, telling others how rich you are. It's okay for men to wear watches, but I don't like anything too extravagant. Oh? Which one do you like? Lin Xiyue asked curiously. I think IWC is pretty good. Zhang Ling's eyes revealed a trace of yearning. I have always dreamed of owning an IWC watch. Hey. Yeah, that's fine. Lin Xiyue nodded slightly and said thoughtfully, this brand is very stylish. The exquisite yet restrained style is especially suitable for a science and engineering guy like you. Chapter 7 My Wife's High Heels. Hearing this, Zhang Ling watched the chef's wonderful cooking skills patiently. Being chosen by such a rich wife, I should just accept whatever she buys for me. Between husband and wife, there is no need to worry too much about how money is spent. This is what it feels like for girls who marry a tall, rich and handsome man. Feeling that they had almost finished eating, Zhang Ling stood up to pay the bill, and Lin Xiyue also stood up and followed him. When I arrived at the checkout counter and looked at the amount on the bill, I saw that 2 fillet steaks cost 9,800 yuan, a plate of fried rice cost 600 yuan, and a bottle of Lafite cost 19,000 yuan, a total of 29,400 yuan. Lin Xiyue noticed a slight change in Zhang Ling's expression, so she leaned close to his ear and asked softly, What's wrong, husband? Wife, the cost of this meal is equivalent to eating 2 cows. Too expensive. Lin Xiyue blinked. Har, that's not bad. For today, it's not excessive to spend like this once. What the hell, I know filet mignon is expensive, not to mention Lafite, but a serving of egg fried rice cost me 600, that's a bit too much. This money was originally intended for my wife to buy me a car. If I continue to spend it like this, 2 million yuan will not be able to withstand a lot of spending. It feels like just an extra zero. Lin Xiyue seemed to see through Zhang Ling's thoughts. It's my fault. Next time in such an occasion, let me pay the bill. I will make up the balance on your card tomorrow. This. Okay. The mall is less than 100 meters from here, let's go shopping. Lin Xiyue took Zhang Ling's arm. Yeah. Zhang Ling nodded. After a while, the two arrived at the mall. All the top luxury brands gather here, and it is a place that ordinary people would not dare to set foot in even in their dreams. When they reached the door of a shoe store, Lin Xiyue poked her head in and looked inside, then said to Zhang Ling, Honey, go check your watch first, I'll go in and buy a pair of shoes. I'll go with you. I'm very picky when it comes to buying shoes, and I'm afraid you'll get impatient waiting. And it takes a lot of time to look at a watch, so you can choose carefully, and if you find something you like, just tell me. Okay then, honey, I'll go first. He looked up at the brand logo of the shoe store and said, RC, what brand is this? When I get my salary, I will use my own money to buy a pair for my wife. She will definitely be very happy, hee. When you come to the watch area, you will see a wide variety of big name watches. I want to look at Vacheron Constantin or Lange, but I would like to take a look at Omega, IWC, Rolex, which are considered the ceiling of watches in the eyes of ordinary people. Although I don't have a particular fondness for the brand of Rolex, this store in front of me is one of them, so you might as well go and take a look. Zhang Ling walked into the Leilitu store with big strides, but was stopped by a clerk before he could even enter. I'm sorry, sir, we don't have any stock at the moment. If there's no stock, then there's no stock. Why do I feel like you don't want me to go in? Zhang Ling frowned. Well, sir, you might as well go next door and have a look. Maybe they'll have the style you like there. The clerk nodded with a smile. Zhang Ling took a small step back and looked at the watch shop next door. There were 2 words written on the sign. Tudor. Yes, sir, the styles there may be suitable for you. The clerk's smile was very meaningful. It seems that the rumors are true. If you want to buy a Rolex, you have to pair it with a few Tudor watches, har har. No, I didn't plan to buy it, I just wanted to take a look. This trick is too obvious. In Zhang Ling's opinion, labor soil is a thing that only nouveau riche are fond of, and he does not want to appear so ostentatious and vulgar. The clerk, on the other hand, didn't care at all. He still kept smiling and nodded slightly. In his eyes, it was already very good for someone like Zhang Ling to be able to afford a Tudor watch. Honey, are you ready? At this time, Lin Xiyue came over carrying a handbag with the word RC on it. She had a graceful figure and light steps, attracting a lot of attention in the mall. Zhang Ling heard the voice and turned around, but his eyes were immediately attracted by Lin Xiyue's feet. He frowned slightly. Are these the shoes I just bought? They are just 2 soles and 2 leather straps. How valuable are they? Wife, your shoes. Does it look good? Lin Xiyue raised her foot slightly and showed it. Well, white. Zhang Ling answered hesitantly. Well, it looks good. Zhang Ling quickly added, his eyes still fixed on Lin Xiyue's shoes. His focused expression made Lin Xiyue feel a little embarrassed. Are you looking at shoes? Lin Xiyue asked with a red face. Yeah. Zhang Ling scratched his head and answered awkwardly. Lin Xiyue looked down at her shoes and a smile that was hard to conceal appeared at the corner of her mouth. My husband is so cute, he always has some strange reactions. Have you checked your watch? Lin Xiyue changed the subject. I haven't seen it yet. You have to pair a Rolex with a few Tudors. With this money, I might as well buy 2 IWCs. A formal watch, a casual watch, both are comfortable to wear. Zhang Ling said while gesturing. As long as you like it, I'll buy you a few more pieces so you can match them with your daily wear. Lin Xiyue said gently, and then she took Zhang Ling's arm, and the 2 of them walked towards the international counter together. Wife, let me help you carry your shoes. Zhang Ling reached out to take the bag from Lin Xiyue's hand. No, husband. I don't want you to do these little things. Just be responsible for accompanying me. Lin Xiyue smiled and dodged the left hand. I see that the men following other young women are all shoe carriers. You mean the dog licker? Licking dogs. Are there so many? Zhang Ling scratched his head and looked back at a man and woman passing by. The man was seen following the woman closely, carrying large and small bags in his hands, with a flattering smile on his face. He would ask the woman from time to time if she was tired. By the way, honey, how much are these shoes of yours? Zhang Ling came back to his senses and turned the topic back to Lin Xiyue's new shoes. A little over 20,000. Looks good, right? More than 20,000. Zhang Ling calculated silently in his mind, well, it looks good, especially on my wife's feet. Har har, husband, do you have a foot fetish? Lin Xiyue suddenly approached Zhang Ling and stared at him without blinking. Zhang Ling's face turned red in an instant, he lowered his head a little embarrassedly, and muttered softly, no. No. Wow. My husband is so cute. My mom must like him very much. Chapter 8. My wife took me on a spending spree. Zhang Ling walked back and forth in front of the luxurious counter several times. Under the bright lights, the 6 series of exquisite watches from IWC are like shining stars, each of which exudes unique charm and attracts his attention. Seeing that Zhang Ling was having trouble making a decision, Lin Xiyue guessed that he must have thought the price was too high and was too embarrassed to ask. Honey, which series do you like? Money is not a problem. Zhang Ling knew that Lin Xiyue was very rich, but at this moment he was like a child lost in a candy house, at a loss as to what to do. He said a little embarrassedly, I like both series, Pilot and Portugal. Otherwise, wife, can you help me take a look? As he spoke, his eyes would occasionally steal a glance at Lin Xiyue, with a hint of confusion. The clerk next to him kept looking at Zhang Ling with eyes like a scanner. Seeing that he had to ask the woman beside him for permission to buy a watch, she smiled imperceptibly and then shifted her gaze to Lin Xiyue. Lin Xiyue was very straightforward. She raised her chin slightly and said to the clerk confidently, "The blue plate of Dafe, the green plate of Pookie, and the white plate of Pooji, please help me get them." Her voice was not loud, but it had an unquestionable power, like a queen giving orders. The clerk's face was all smiles. If this order was successful, he would get a lot of commission. "Okay, lady, do you want to compare the three models? Each of these three models has its own characteristics. I can briefly introduce them to you. I want all three," Lin Xiyue said calmly. The clerk was stunned for a moment, wondering if she had heard it wrong. She laughed dryly twice and confirmed again. "You mean all three?" "Yeah." Lin Xiyue looked at the clerk and nodded repeatedly. The clerk looked at Zhang Ling standing beside him again, with a meaningful smile on his face. Zhang Ling felt a little uncomfortable being stared at by the clerk. He pretended to be indifferent, put his hands in his pockets and looked a little wondering. Is this the legendary feeling of being kept by a rich woman? No, this is my wife, but why does it feel a bit weird? When others see me, will they think of those green tea girls and gigolos? You have to stay calm and not be greedy for fame and fortune, but this feeling is super good. He quietly stretched out his hands, gently wrapped them around Lin Xiyue's small waist, put his face on Lin Xiyue's back, and said coquettishly, "Wife, you are so good to me." Lin Xiyue felt the warmth coming from behind, looked down, and a gentle smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. It seems that men are just like children and need to be coaxed. She reached out and touched Zhang Ling's hand around her waist, and whispered, "You are my husband, of course I have to treat you well." The clerk at the side finally couldn't help laughing, and his laughter was hearty and cheerful. This is the first time I see a man acting coquettishly towards a woman. This sister-brother relationship is pretty good. Seeing them like this, I feel like finding a boyfriend who is 5 years younger than me. You too, I'm so envious. I've packed it for you. Is there anything else you need? Without. As Lin Xiyue said this, she handed over the phone. Okay, the total amount for this consumption is 288,000. Seeing that it was still early, Lin Xiyue pulled Zhang Ling to continue shopping. The mall was crowded and bustling. Zhang Ling was taken by Lin Xiyue to shuttle between various stores. From fashionable men's clothing stores to exquisite accessories counters, she helped Zhang Ling pick out several sets of clothes. The experience of being thrown money at by a woman like this made Zhang Ling feel dizzy. His eyes would drift to Lin Xiyue from time to time, this beautiful and wealthy woman, who is now his wife. I'm going to follow her home tonight. Wife, Zhang Ling hesitated for a moment, then spoke, will my parents have any objections to my age? For example, they think I'm too young to take care of you. Lin Xiyue smiled gently, dispelling the haze in Zhang Ling's heart. You mean my parents? Har har, no. Besides, why should you take care of me? I should be the one taking care of you. It's good that you are older than me. I think I will fulfill my duties as a man. Zhang Ling muttered somewhat unconvinced. Also, you spend so much money on me, will my parents have any thoughts? What do you think? You are marrying into my family, just like marrying a wife. It is natural to spend money. Just don't mind it, okay? Lin Xiyue explained patiently, letting Zhang Ling put aside these concerns. Zhang Ling thought about it and felt that it was true. Since he was a son-in-law, the situation was indeed different. Well, I listened to my wife. He replied with a smile. By the way, husband, don't you know how to drive? Lin Xiyue suddenly asked. Zhang Ling laughed dryly and replied a little embarrassedly, yes. Otherwise, there is no need to buy an electric car, hee hee. He scratched his head and felt that he was indeed lacking in this area. How about this? I'll arrange it and have Wanwan help you sign up for a driving school so you don't have to wait in line. But you have to take the test yourself, so you can't cheat. Okay. Zhang Ling nodded. Yes. Look at us, we have so many bags today. It's really inconvenient without a car. During this half day, they went on a shopping spree and gained a lot. It would be impossible to take all these things away relying solely on electric vehicles. Lin Xiyue had no choice but to take out her cell phone and make a voice call to her assistant Chu Wanwan. A voice ringtone rang on the phone, and soon the call was connected. Hey, Wanwan, come pick us up right after get off work. I'll send you the location later. Got it, Mr. Lin. I just left the company. Your call is so timely. Har har. Wanwan's sweet voice came from the phone. Well, I'll hang up first. After Lin Xiyue hung up the phone, she quickly sent the location information to Xu Wanwan. Then he waited at the entrance of the mall with Zhang Ling. 10 minutes later, Xu Wanwan rushed over. Zhang Ling looked at Xu Wanwan, and an inexplicable sense of intimacy surged in his heart. Perhaps it was because he had become Lin Xiyue's husband. This special identity made him feel a little different towards the people around Lin Xiyue. Mr. Zhang, are you having a good time with Mr. Lin today? Xu Wanwan said with a gentle smile on her face. You know, up to now, only Xu Wanwan knew everything between Lin Xiyue and Zhang Ling from beginning to end. She was like a guardian, witnessing it all silently. Her kindness made Zhang Ling feel a little overwhelmed. He didn't know how to respond for a moment and just stood there in a daze. Zhang Ling's face suddenly turned red to his ears. Don't be nervous, Mr. Zhang. You are half my boss now. If you encounter any problems in the company in the future and it is not convenient to find Mr. Lin, just come to me directly. Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan looked at each other and smiled knowingly. Honey, why don't you get in the car? Lin Xiyue saw Zhang Ling standing by the car in a daze and couldn't help but ask. The electric car is still parked over there. Zhang Ling pointed in the direction of the parking lot. It's okay. We can just walk here tomorrow morning. It's only about 10 minutes away from the company. Okay. Zhang Ling nodded and got into the car. In the car, Lin Xiyue naturally put her arm around Zhang Ling's arm, resting her head lightly on his shoulder with a sweet look on her face. Xu Wanwan glanced at the rearview mirror and coughed deliberately. Hey! Hey! Pay attention to your image. Chapter 9. The mother-in-law was so happy that she gave another for million. 10 minutes later, the grand gate of the Galaxy Bay Villa district came into view. Zhang Ling sat in the car, his eyes like a scanner, trying to capture every view of the villa area. Before he could appreciate it properly, the car stopped steadily. Honey, we're home. So fast. Zhang Ling felt his heart suddenly jump. Although on their way here, I simulated the meeting scene countless times in my mind, especially the call of Mom and Dad. But when it really came to this critical moment, I was extremely nervous. When other people fall in love, at least there is a gradual process, and there is a buffer period to adapt to meeting the parents. That's great. In just one day, as soon as I step into their house, I have to follow Lin Xiyue and call them Mom and Dad. This marriage is moving too fast and I can't keep up with the pace at all. Mr. Lin, I'll go back then. Xu Wanwan said softly. Stay and have dinner together, why are you in such a hurry? Today is different from the past, so I won't disturb your family. Xu Wanwan blinked with a mischievous look on her face. Lin Xiyue looked at her and nodded silently. All right. After taking out the purchased items from the car, Xu Wanwan started the car and slowly drove away. Zhang Ling's gaze followed Xu Wanwan's car as it drove away, then he came to his senses and looked at the villa in front of him. The design of this villa is very exquisite. There is a garage on the first floor and there is a door next to the garage that seems to lead directly to the living room. Lin Xiyue walked to the door and elegantly scanned her face in front of the identifier, and there was a click sound. Mom, I'm back. As soon as Lin Xiyue entered the door, her voice echoed in the house. Suran was preparing dinner in the kitchen. When she heard her daughter's voice, she quickly took off her apron and walked out of the kitchen with a smile on her face. How was it? Did you get married successfully today? Har har, Mom, I've brought the people back, how can it be impossible? Lin Xiyue shook her head proudly and looked at Zhang Ling. Suran's eyes fell on Zhang Ling, and she walked over quickly. Your name is Zhang Ling. She looked up and down at the young man in front of her. Zhang Ling felt his throat a little dry. 23 years old. Suran continued to ask. Yes. Zhang Ling's palms were sweating, and he could feel Lin Xiyue giving him crazy hints with her eyes. The lines he had prepared were all messed up at once. In his nervousness, his brain was twitching and he blurted out, Mom, I am your biological son now. Oh, this kid is talking. Suran was stunned at first, then burst into laughter, almost crying, har har. She laughed as she walked to the side, pushed open a bedroom door, and shouted, Chishan, your son is back. Suran was really amused by Zhang Ling's cute yet nervous look, and she wanted to share this joy with her husband with great joy. Lin Chishan was watching a short video in the bedroom. He was confused by Su Ran's shout and kept wondering, "Son? Where did the sun come from?" He walked to the door with a puzzled look on his face. As soon as he came out, he saw his daughter Lin Xiyue, and then looked at Zhang Ling, who was standing beside him a little uncomfortably. He guessed what was going on, but it all happened too suddenly and he was unable to react for a while. "Daughter, son-in-law?" Lin Xiyue asked tentatively. When Zhang Ling heard this, he immediately came to his senses, took a step forward, and called out respectfully, "Dad." Lin Xiyue looked at Lin Xiyue standing at the door in a daze, as if she had seen the funniest scene in the world. She couldn't help but hold her stomach and laugh so hard that she couldn't straighten her back. "Dad, what's wrong with you? You've been urging me to get married. Har har, now I've brought her back, but you're dumbfounded." Zhang Ling watched this scene and his tense nerves relaxed a little, and he started laughing. "Honey, I told you a long time ago that we should at least give everyone some time to adapt. I thought I was the only one who was nervous. I didn't expect Dad to be even more nervous than me." Su Ran also smiled from ear to ear. She covered her belly with one hand and beckoned with the other hand. "Xie, take out the marriage certificate and show it to us." Lin Xiyue took out the marriage certificate from her bag and handed it to the two elders. The two elders gathered together, watching carefully, laughing as they watched, and looking up at the young couple from time to time. "Hey! You girl, if you have the ability, I was afraid that you wouldn't be able to get married. But you found a young man. Har har." Their whole house was filled with this joyful atmosphere. "I'll add 2 dishes." Su Ran smiled and quickly walked into the kitchen. "How can you be happy without some wine?" Lin Xiyue took out a bottle of Maotai that he had collected for many years and talked to Zhang Ling about the origin of the wine. Zhang Ling didn't know anything about this or that, but they just started chatting. After a while, several dishes were served. Lin Xiyue looked at Su Ran. "Oh. It turns out that my mother had a trick up her sleeve and was prepared." Su Ran told Lin Xiyue about the conversation he had with Lin Xiyue in the morning. He also found it incredible that the two of them fell in love at first sight and got married just like that. Clink. "Xiaozhang, what do your parents do? How old are they this year?" "My dad is 42, my mom is 41, they raise cattle in their hometown." When Lin Xiyue heard this, she immediately stuck out her tongue. Her parents-in-law were only 6 or 7 years older than her. Raising cattle. Lin Xiyue calmed himself down. "Yes, my family sold 6 cows to coax me into going to school in Jiangxia." After hearing this, Lin Xiyue felt that Zhang Ling was a not-so-easy child, so he treated him as his own son since he came to live here. 1 cup, 2 cups. "Xiaozhang, we'll give you some money to change your name today. There will definitely be a limit on bank transfers. There are 4 million in this card, and it's yours now," Su Ran said as he handed over a Union Pay card. "Change of statement fee." "No way. You can't play like this. My wife gave me 2 million and I didn't spend much." "Yes. You are a member of our family now, and we are counting on you to take care of us in our old age." Zhang Ling glanced at Lin Xiyue. Lin Xiyue smiled and nodded, saying, "Hubby, just take it. This is a gift from my parents." "Oh, okay." Zhang Ling took the card upon seeing this. The two elders smiled at each other and were particularly satisfied with Zhang Ling. Hold the wedding on National Day, and the apartment across Tianhai will be Xie's dowry, har har. Across the Tianhai, there is a villa area, where 1 villa costs at least 10 million. Zhang Ling stared with his eyes wide open, not knowing how to answer. Lin Xiyue started to act coquettishly at this time. "Mom, do you really want me to move out?" "Har har, where you live is your business. This room is for Xiaozhang. Otherwise, where would your parents-in-law live when they come?" "Mom, you're so nice," Lin Xiyue said with a pinched mouth. "How rich is my wife's family? How come they can talk about millions without blinking an eye?" After dinner, Lin Xiyue was eager to pull Zhang Ling upstairs. "Mom and Dad, we've been shopping all day, and we feel a little tired." Su Ran responded with a smile. "Har har, okay, go upstairs." Lin Xiyue leaned close to Su Ran and asked in a low voice, "They can live together, right? You are getting old and confused. They have already obtained their marriage certificate. Don't go upstairs if you have nothing to do tonight." Oh. Chapter 10. Husband and wife are becoming ambiguous. "Honey, your house is so big. It's our home. Zhang Ling smiled slightly and walked towards the balcony, wanting to appreciate the scenery outside and feel the fresh environment here. Before he could take a few steps, Lin Xiyue's soft but powerful hand pulled him into the room. The door slammed shut behind him. Lin Xiyue's eyes, which were originally like deep lake water, were now burning with blazing flames. Zhang Ling only felt a current running up from the soles of his feet to his heart, and the blood in his body seemed to be ignited, rushing and roaring in his veins. His throat was a little dry and he swallowed hard. My wife is an extremely beautiful young woman, and we are doing this in this private room. This, who can resist this? Before he could come back to his senses from this series of thoughts, Lin Xiyue had already forcefully pressed him behind the door. This sudden action made Zhang Ling's heart beat faster. So wild, I like it. Wife, you are not so anxious, are you? Zhang Ling stuttered, his voice trembling with nervousness and excitement. For the entire day, Zhang Ling's eyes seemed to be tied by Lin Xiyue with a silk thread, and were tightly glued to her. For Lin Xiyue, this feeling of being stared at passionately was like being gently brushed by a breeze on a hot summer day. It was so comfortable that every pore of hers opened up. It felt so good. But as a woman, how could she easily express this sweet and shy feeling? She did not respond directly to Zhang Ling's words, but just gently pressed her blushing face against Zhang Ling's chest. Zhang Ling could clearly feel the warm breath she exhaled, penetrating through his clothes and ironing his skin, like a small flame, stirring his heartstrings. Lin Xiyue closed her eyes slightly and muttered softly. I'm not in a hurry. I just want to hear your heartbeat at this moment. Zhang Ling subconsciously stretched out his arms and hugged Lin Xiyue tightly. This feeling is like dreaming. I have often dreamed of similar scenes before, but this dream would easily wake me up if I moved. My wife is so proactive. The feeling of being pampered by her is like a dream. Please don't let me wake up. Today feels so unreal. It's over. How could I be so obsessed with her in just one day? Even if she has nothing, I'm afraid I can't refuse her. Zhang Ling also closed his eyes and enjoyed this moment. Your heartbeat is sending Morse code. After I interpreted it carefully, the answer is that you really want me now, hee hee. Lin Xiyue raised her head and stared at Zhang Ling intently. Honey, can I kiss you? His heartbeat started beating faster, as if it was about to jump out of his chest. Silly boy, I'm your wife, what do you think? Lin Xiyue said gently. Wife, I'm so nervous, why don't you turn off the lights? Zhang Ling said somewhat embarrassedly. This made Lin Xiyue laugh. Har, let me help you pack your clothes, you go in and take a shower. Wife, let me kiss you first. No, I can't stop once I start kissing you, har. Lin Xiyue started to clean up. Zhang Ling scratched his head. What? You can't even kiss me. It was my wife who wanted me to kiss her just now, but now she says no. You're just keeping me in suspense. Don't stand there like an idiot, husband. Come in. I'll pack your clothes for you. That bathrobe next to you is mine. You can wear it. Oh well. Entering the bathroom, Zhang Ling was dumbfounded. The area was no less than 15 square meters and was big enough for dancing. That bath can accommodate at least 2 or 3 people. After a while, Zhang Ling finished washing and came out. His speed left Lin Xiyue dumbfounded. All right. Well, 5 minutes is enough. Are you usually this fast? Yeah. What's wrong? Lin Xiyue blushed, thinking that she might have been overthinking it. Maybe men just take a shower so quickly. No. Then you can just look around first, I'll go in and take a shower. Yeah, Zhang Ling responded and looked around Lin Xiyue's room. A photo album on the bookshelf caught Zhang Ling's attention. Open the album and you will see that each photo has a time and date. Seeing Lin Xiyue, who looked like she was about 17 or 18 years old, he couldn't help but sigh. You hate that I was born late, and I hate that you were born early. Now I finally understand. My wife has grown up, but I was still snotty and playing in the mud. Zhang Ling walked around the room again and looked at the time. Not ready in half an hour. It's almost 10 o'clock. Zhang Ling paced to the bedside and his eyes fell on the bed where Lin Xiyue was sleeping. He bent down and smelled it gently, with an intoxicated expression on his face, as if the lingering fragrance was the most charming fragrance in the world. Lin Xiyue just walked to the door and saw this blushing scene. Husband, what are you doing? Zhang Ling straightened up suddenly like a thief who was caught on the spot, and stammered, "No, nothing." His face turned red instantly. Looking at Zhang Ling's face, Lin Xiyue's face also blushed with shyness. She walked over slowly with light lotus steps. "Husband." Her voice was like a clear spring in the mountains. Zhang Ling looked up at Lin Xiyue, one of his hands unconsciously groping for the switch on the wall. "Wife." He responded, his voice a little hoarse. There was an ambiguous atmosphere in the air, and it was so quiet that the only sound was each other's breathing. However, only 5 minutes later, Lin Xiyue turned on the light. The light filled the whole room. She hugged Zhang Ling tenderly, comforting him like a child. "It's okay. It's normal that you have no experience. This is my little husband." Zhang Ling muttered somewhat unconvinced, "No, I want to be the big husband." He hugged Lin Xiyue tighter. Lin Xiyue gently stroked his hair, smiled and said, "Everything will be fine in the future, har har." Her smile was like the spring sunshine, warm and charming. Zhang Ling buried his face in Lin Xiyue's arms a little embarrassedly, and whispered, "Wife, why don't you turn off the light? The light is a bit dazzling." "Okay." Lin Xiyue was about to reach out to turn off the light when she suddenly cried out in surprise. "Husband, you." At the same time, in the quiet little park, Suran and Lin Xiyue were strolling leisurely. Normally, they would go home around 9 o'clock, but today they were in a particularly good mood and walked around outside again and again, as if they had endless things to talk about. "Suran, Xiaozhong is a really good kid. When I think about it now, I feel like I'm dreaming. Look how attentive he is to Xie, he is such a good kid." "Yeah. Xie is more than 10 years older than him. Who would have thought that the two of them could be together? This is probably fate. God destined them to meet, know each other, and fall in love with each other." "Huh, they went to bed so early." Lin Xiyue suddenly stopped, looked in the direction of his villa, and said with some confusion, "You old fool, why do you care about other people's business? Children have their own lives." Suran smiled and scolded, gently patting Lin Xiyue's arm. Lin Xiyue seemed not to have heard Suran's words. He seemed to understand something and his eyes were fixed on the window on the second floor of his villa. "I saw the lights on the second floor flickering on and off, changing every few minutes. Hey Suran, is there something wrong with the light in Xie's room? Why did it turn on and off several times? You must be dazzled. Let me take a look." Chapter 11, My father-in-law is actually the doorman. Just at this moment, the light in the window came on again. "I'm right. There's something wrong with this lamp. Why haven't I heard Xie mention it?" Suran tilted his head and thought, if there was something wrong with the room lights, someone should have been asked to check it out. Or maybe it just broke tonight. Lin Xiyue guessed, his eyes fixed on the window that was lighted through. "It's possible. We can take a walk and then go back. I'll leave the company to Xie, and I'll feel relieved. It's time for you to retire." Suran murmured softly. Lin Xiyue nodded silently, a gentle smile appearing on his face. "I have an easy time in the company. Har har, I'll work for another year and then I'll talk about it when I turn 60. As he spoke, he naturally took Suran's arm and the two walked slowly. Lin Xiyue would still look towards his villa from time to time. And the light, after being on for a while, went out again. This time, the lights were off for a longer time, as if the darkness opened its mouth wide and completely swallowed up that ray of light. It was not until the early morning that Zhang Ling reached out to the pillow, touched the mobile phone, and glanced at the time on the screen. "Honey, it's already 3 o'clock. Then go to bed quickly, I have an important meeting tomorrow." Zhang Ling responded reluctantly. "I love you, Moir. This sweet atmosphere makes me seem to forget the time. I am immersed in this warm moment and don't want to fall asleep." I don't know how long it took, but when Zhang Ling woke up again, the sunlight was shining on his face through the gaps in the curtains. He opened his eyes blearily and glanced at his phone. "Oh my god!" Zhang Ling suddenly jumped up from the bed and shouted in panic. "Wife!" The sound echoed in the empty room. He looked around and saw that the clothes Lin Xiyue had prepared for him had been folded and placed aside. I stood up from the bed, but as soon as I exerted force, I felt a pain in my legs. "It can't be last night." "Well, my wife must be very tired today." Zhang Ling put on his clothes while thinking, and every movement was a little difficult. I walked to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was a mess like a bird's nest, I had two big dark circles under my eyes, and I looked listless. He turned on the faucet and cold water flowed out. He scooped up a handful of water and splashed it on his face. The cold touch made him shiver, and he became a little more sober. After washing up, he walked out of the bathroom and went downstairs. Downstairs, Suran was tidying up in the living room. Hearing the faint sound of footsteps coming from upstairs, she stopped what she was doing and quietly stuck her head out. Seeing Zhang Ling coming down the stairs, she smiled mysteriously and tiptoed into the kitchen. "Wake up! Come, sit down and have a bowl of tremeller soup." Suran came out of the kitchen carrying a bowl of steaming tremeller soup and placed it on the dining table. "Mom, has Xiyue gone to work?" Zhang Ling asked as he walked towards the dining table. "Yes. Don't worry, just report in this morning and eat slowly." Suran replied with a smile. "I'm late on my first day at work, isn't that good?" This job means a lot to him. This is a demonstration of the results of his 3 years of hard study and an important step for him to enter a new stage in life. Suran brought out 2 egg tarts from the kitchen and placed them in front of Zhang Ling. "Everything has its own special features. I added a few extra eggs to the egg tart today, and it almost didn't hold its shape, it's very tender." The 2 egg tarts were placed on an exquisite plate. Zhang Ling leaned closer and could smell the rich egg and milk aroma. "Special? Is it because your wife is the CEO? That won't work either. Work and family are 2 different things." As he thought about it, he picked up an egg tart and took a bite. "Wow, Mom, did you make this? It's delicious." Suran looked at Zhang Ling and stood aside with a smile. The child is really hungry, and Xiyue complains that there is too much sugar. "Eat slowly and don't choke. Mom will give you another bowl of tremeller soup." Suran turned around and walked back into the kitchen. "Yeah, okay, Mom." It was already 9 o'clock when Zhang Ling finished breakfast. "I'm going to work. Xiao Zhang, how about I make a phone call and have someone pick you up?" Zhang Ling waved his hand. "It's okay, Mom. I'll take a cab to Michelin. My electric bike is still there." "That's it. Well, then, be careful on the road." "Okay, thanks, Mom." After Zhang Ling finished speaking, he picked up his phone and opened the taxi app. 10 minutes later. After Zhang Ling got his electric bike back, he rushed to Jianghua Group without stopping. When he arrived at the gate of the group, an hour and a half had passed according to the normal working time. The security guard, Lao Chen, was standing at the door smoking leisurely. When he saw Zhang Ling riding an electric bike over, he looked him up and down. "Who are you looking for?" "I'm here to work." Lao Chen frowned and raised his voice. "Go to work. Where is your work permit?" "Work permit? When I had an interview the day before yesterday, the company issued a notice and I received a temporary pass after registration. It's so quiet today, I hope I can't even get through the door." Zhang Ling thought for a moment and quickly changed his words. "I'm here to report." Just then, another guard came out. "Come on, Xiao Zhang." Dad Zhang Ling stretched his neck and shouted in surprise. He never imagined that his wife was the president of this company and his father-in-law worked as a security guard here. Before Zhang Ling could recover from his shock, Lin Xiyue had already pressed the remote control with a smile and opened the door. "Just go in." Oh, Zhang Ling responded, rode the tram in, and looked back from time to time. To him, it seemed a little unusual. Lin Xiyue held the teacup, walked slowly to the chair and sat down, humming a little tune, looking so comfortable. Old Qian looked at Zhang Ling's receding back and couldn't believe his ears. He walked up to Lin Xiyue and confirmed again. "Lao Lin, is this really your son-in-law?" "Why? Why not?" Lin Xiyue asked with a smile. "Wow, my niece is really capable." "Old Qian, don't talk about you. I was also shocked when I found out about this last night." "Har har." Lin Xiyue smiled and shook his head. Lao Qian couldn't believe it. Zhang Ling looked like a recent college graduate. After all, Lin Xiyue is in her 30s, how did they get together? A live-in son-in-law? Oh. He's too young. Lao Lin, what does this child do at home? Oh, I heard from Xiyue that my son-in-law's family raises cattle. It's not easy. He has to sell cattle to save up for tuition. But if he comes to our house, we won't let him suffer. He has to sell cattle to save money for his tuition. He is indeed a child from a poor family. Well, such children will grow up early. Chapter 12. I am not sensible when I join the company and break into the meeting room. Jianghua Group is like a huge industrial castle, covering an area of 110,000 square meters. It stands majestically in this industrial area. In the production workshop, robots are operating in an orderly manner. Several safety officers closely watched the robots' every move to ensure that the production process was foolproof. Zhang Ling came to the technical department, which was like a technological beehive with 4 or 5 studios responsible for important tasks such as testing, research, and assembly. He stopped at the door of one of the studios. He looked around awkwardly, then he caught someone and asked politely, "Hello, is the minister here?" The person being asked is Wang Kai, 37 years old, and he is a well-known senior engineer of Jianghua Group. In the technical department, which is full of experts, he is the best except for the director. Wang Kai stopped what he was doing and looked around. Minister Chen is in a meeting right now. Just ask me if you have anything to ask. I'm here to report. Zhang Ling replied. Just graduated. Well, I just passed the interview the day before yesterday. Wang Kai nodded, turned around and walked to the door of another laboratory, and shouted at the top of his voice, "Taozi, we're new here, please take care of him." "Okay, Brother Wang." A voice came from inside. Taozi came out quickly. He was Wang Kai's right-hand man. Although he was young, he was a mid-level engineer and had 7 or 8 people under him. As soon as he saw Zhang Ling, his eyes lit up. He was wearing a well-ironed suit and immediately started to tease him with a smile. "Oh, he's wearing a suit. What a style. Luckily Brother Wang told me about it, otherwise I would have thought it was some big boss coming to inspect." Zhang Ling also laughed. "I came late today and couldn't find anyone to pick up my work ID and work clothes." "Why, you haven't completed the entry procedures yet?" "No. They just told me to report today, and didn't tell me anything else." When Taozi heard this, he immediately understood and thought that this was another newbie who had just graduated from school and knew nothing. He chuckled, "Then you should go find Minister Chen right away, otherwise all your work today will be in vain." "Didn't you say you were in a meeting?" Zhang Ling hesitated. "Why don't you just knock on the door and go in?" When Zhang Ling heard this, he thought it made sense and nodded quickly. "Okay, I'll go right away." After saying that, he ran towards the elevator. Seeing Zhang Ling excitedly entering the elevator, Taozi couldn't help but burst into laughter. Then he trotted over to Wang Kai and said with a smile, "Brother Wang, another young man. He went to see Minister Chen." "Ah." Wang Kai frowned. "Then he will definitely be scolded today. I'm telling you, why do you bully others for no reason?" "I just said that, who knew he would really go?" "Har har." Taozi laughed so hard that tears were almost coming out. Wang Kai shook his head, and the image of Minister Chen appeared in his mind. Minister Chen is a middle-aged woman in her 40s. She has had quite a lot of ups and downs in her love life. She has had 7 or 8 boyfriends, but no one is willing to marry her. If she gets angry, it's terrible, like a volcano erupting. She can scold people for at least an hour, and her words are sharp. Zhang Ling didn't know that Taozi was teasing him on purpose, so he really ran to the 3rd floor, walked straight to the door of the meeting room, and knocked on the door. Knock, knock. At this time, a summary meeting was taking place in the conference room. As one of the important leaders of the company, Lin Xiyue was sitting around the conference table with department leaders, seriously discussing various work matters. Hearing the noise coming from the door, Lin Xiyue's originally focused expression immediately changed. The company has clear regulations and extremely strict requirements during meetings. Even if a department cadre is late, he or she will be automatically disqualified from attending the meeting. In the middle of such a serious meeting, being suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door would make anyone feel unhappy. Zhang Ling stood at the door, slightly bent over, put his ear close to the door, and listened carefully to the movement inside. Strange. I clearly heard some noise inside just now, why is there no sound now? Dong dong. He knocked a few more times, louder this time, as if he was afraid that the person inside couldn't hear him. Please come in. A response finally came from inside. I told you. How could I have heard it wrong? Zhang Ling muttered softly as he reached out and pushed the door open. Report. I'm looking for Minister Chen. Zhang Ling's shout startled Minister Chen, who almost jumped up from his chair. Once you pass the interview, you must read the company's rules and regulations several times before officially joining the company. Although you are very handsome, you don't know any rules at all. Aren't you harming me? Lin Xiyue was originally frowning, feeling somewhat resentful towards this tactless intruder, but when she saw clearly that the person was Zhang Ling, she suddenly felt unwell. Her face suddenly turned red to her ears, and she subconsciously reached out to cover half of her face, feeling extremely panicked. There were more than a dozen people at the table, and 8 or 9 of them were single women. If people knew about her relationship with Zhang Ling, she must avoid being talked about behind her back and being criticized for being an old cow eating young grass. Although this matter will be announced sooner or later, it is definitely not at this moment. Minister Chen was not a foolish person and she saw some signs at a glance. During the interview the day before yesterday, she was responsible for the recruitment work in Area A, while Lin Xiyue was responsible for Area B. This person was definitely recruited by Lin Xiyue, so it's not my fault. Thinking of this, Minister Chen came up with an idea. I'm sorry, Mr. Lin, I failed in my duty. Minister Chen stood up and said apologetically. When Lin Xiyue heard Minister Chen say this, she felt relieved and immediately went down the stairs. Oh. I just joined the company and don't understand. Forget it this time. Let's continue the meeting. Lin Xiyue tried hard to make her voice sound calmer, but she couldn't help but glance at Zhang Ling from time to time. Husband, why are you still standing here? Get out of here quickly and don't cause any more trouble. Zhang Ling seemed to be completely unaware of the subtle atmosphere in the conference room. He just stood there with his mouth grinning, almost laughing out loud. He looked at Lin Xiyue, who was sitting at the head seat at the conference table with a serious yet somewhat funny expression on her face, and his heart was filled with joy. Wife, you are so cool. Lin Xiyue was extremely nervous. She was really afraid that Zhang Ling would speak too quickly and call her wife in front of so many people. That would be so embarrassing. She really couldn't sit still, so she simply picked up the document in front of her and pretended nothing had happened. That's all for today's meeting. When he passed by Zhang Ling, he could clearly hear Zhang Ling call out softly, wife. The sound was so soft, just loud enough for him to hear it when he passed by. Lin Xiyue paused for 0.07 seconds. At this time, Minister Chen came over. Handsome boy, come with me. After saying that, he took Zhang Ling to the Human Resources Department. Chapter 13. Zhang Ling is a Naruto fan. In the Human Resources Department on the second floor, Zhang Ling successfully completed the entry procedures and received 2 brand new work clothes. Minister Chen, I will be your subordinate from now on. Zhang Ling said with a smile. Minister Chen looked him over and asked jokingly, do you have a girlfriend? Zhang Ling was slightly stunned. Minister Chen, why are you asking this? Minister Chen laughed cheerfully. There are many unmarried women in the company. I'm afraid our technical department will be flooded with people. To be honest, with your appearance, coming to work here is like a sheep walking into a tiger's mouth. Zhang Ling was delighted, thinking that Minister Chen was praising his handsomeness. Minister Chen, isn't it true that beautiful women are all very kind? If you need anything in the future, just tell me. Har har, you have such a sweet mouth. Minister Chen smiled even more. The two chatted and laughed all their way and soon arrived at the technical department. At this time, Tazi was concentrating on debugging the computer case. He looked up inadvertently and saw Minister Chen and Zhang Ling walking towards him through the blinds. He muttered to himself, where did this guy come from? How could he appear here unscathed? After Minister Chen had a brief exchange with Wang Kai, he brought Zhang Ling to Tazi. Tazi, I leave the person to you. Tazi patted his chest and assured, don't worry. I will guide him for a week and make sure he can complete the assembly and debugging independently. Minister Chen nodded with satisfaction and looked at Zhang Ling again. Handsome boy, do a good job. Okay, Minister Chen. Zhang Ling responded. As soon as Zhang Ling changed his clothes in the locker room, Tazi came over impatiently. Weren't you in a meeting when you went up there? Yes. Did you knock and go in? You told me to knock on the door. I even scared Minister Chen when I went in, and then the meeting was over. After hearing this, Tazi muttered to himself, what a strange thing. Could it be that Minister Chen has taken a fancy to this boy? But he said, "Har har, didn't she say anything else to you?" Zhang Ling thought for a moment and said, "She always calls me handsome." Tazi was so angry that he laughed. "Wow, you are such a narcissist." After saying that, Tazi took out a drawing and handed it to Zhang Ling, asking him to assemble the chassis. Zhang Ling took the drawing and looked at it. It was from Siemens. This was child's play, just basic knowledge. Tazi turned around and ran to Wang Kai. As soon as Wang Kai saw him, he shut him up with words. "Don't say anything. I know what you want to say. I also want to know what's going on." Tazi said anxiously, "Brother Wang, do you think this kid came in through the back door?" Wang Kai frowned slightly. "That's hard to say. Let him do something simple first. He just graduated and probably doesn't have much practical experience." "Yeah," Tazi responded. The two were talking when Zhang Ling came over in less than a quarter of an hour. "Team leader, I've got it done." Tazi and Wang Kai looked at each other and saw surprise in each other's eyes. Without saying a word, they immediately walked towards the assembly room. Zhang Ling felt amused as he saw the two people in a hurry. "It's just installing a computer, why make such a fuss?" Tazi took the drawings and checked them carefully. After checking, he couldn't help but admire them. "Sure." Wang Kai pointed to the experimental area next door. "Use the chassis you assembled, connect it to the robot arm, and give it commands to see if it can run." Zhang Ling thought, the time to show off his strength has finally come, why not just shock the whole audience? "Can I connect 2 robot arms?" When Tazi heard this, he immediately asked Zhang Ling back. "2? Are you sure? That would cause a conflict. You'd be lucky if you could give orders to just 1 robot." Wang Kai saw Zhang Ling's confident look and became curious. He immediately clapped his hands and shouted loudly, "Come on, everyone, put down your work and come and witness our new colleague. He is going to start 2 robotic arms at the same time. Come and see." As soon as these words were spoken, the technical department exploded. Many people were waiting to see Zhang Ling make a fool of himself. They thought this was simply a fantasy. Anyone who could do this would be truly amazing. This matter soon reached Lin Xiyue's ears. "Isn't this ridiculous? He just arrived and is trying to show off. If there's a malfunction and the 2 machines collide, the loss will be 1 or 2 million. Lin Xiyue didn't care about the money. She was afraid that Zhang Ling would cause such a big trouble as soon as he arrived, which would make the entire technical department a laughing stock of the company. Moreover, 1 chassis controls 2 robots, or they run an action synchronously, which has no practical effect on assembly line production. "Mr. Lin, what should we do? Should I go down and stop him?" Xu Wanwan said anxiously. "Let me go with you," Lin Xiyue said, and the two of them hurried to the technical department. Lin Xiyue muttered as she walked, "My little husband, I won't let you play like this." When Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan rushed to the technical department, they were stunned by the scene before them. Under Zhang Ling's control, the 2 robotic arms seem to have life. They are coordinating with each other, their movements are smooth and flowing, and they seem to collide every time, but they stop precisely every time, just a few centimeters apart. The thrilling and exciting scene made everyone present hold their breath. Zhang Ling was also dubbing the robotic arm in Japanese. Fire style, fire dragon bullet. Earth style, earth flow wall. He practiced the 5 major ninjutsu: gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Everyone in the technical department shouted excitedly, "Zhang Ling, give me Naruto's Rasengan. We should use a wind jutsu and shuriken." "Okay, bring it on." Zhang Ling responded loudly, and his hands kept operating, making the performance even more exciting. Wang Kai kept clapping his hands on the side. Okay, I want to take care of Zhang Ling myself." Lin Xiyue looked at this scene, pulled Xu Wanwan away silently, and asked as she walked, "Wanwan, have you seen Naruto?" Xu Wanwan's eyes were still fixed on the direction of the technical department, and she answered excitedly, "I've seen it. That technique just now is the specialty of the male protagonist Naruto of Naruto." Lin Xiyue nodded slightly. "Oh, I'll have to check it out sometime." She had been worried that Zhang Ling might cause trouble upon arrival, but now she was very happy. She had not expected that Zhang Ling had such a capability. "Their husband I found is both talented and handsome. You can get recognition from others on your first day at work." Back in the office, Lin Xiyue put her feet on the desk, lay down on the chair, and rubbed her head. There was an unconcealable smile on her lips. Wanwan, make me a cup of coffee. Xu Wanwan looked at Lin Xiyue's expression and smiled shyly. Boss Lin, you didn't sleep well last night. Har har. I'll make some for you right away. Chapter 14. I called my dad and he thought I was short of money. The restaurant is located on the 4th floor, where the space is open and the area is very large. The layout of the restaurant is spacious and bright, and the tables and chairs can be easily moved during special times, such as when holding a general staff meeting. A large open space has been cleared, which is large enough to accommodate all employees of the group. As Wang Kai walked, he turned his head and said to Zhang Ling, "You will follow me from now on. What salary did you negotiate during the interview?" Zhang Ling felt that there was nothing to keep secret about salary, so he answered straightforwardly. 10,000. After listening to it, Wang Kai felt it was okay. It is really not low to get this amount right after graduation. You know, those junior engineers working in assembly only earn around 6,000 yuan per month even if they have a certain amount of work experience. Well, there is still room for this salary to be adjusted upwards. You can work for a month first, and then you can apply for a salary increase yourself. Wang Kai said with a smile. Really? That's great. Zhang Ling grinned excitedly. When Taozi heard this, he couldn't help but curl his lips, his face full of dissatisfaction. I've been doing this for 3 years and I only make 18,000 per month. Wang Kai glanced at Taozi and said jokingly. You are a team leader, and I don't see you doing much work. Are you still not satisfied? I only make 26,000 yuan. Zhang Ling's heart moved slightly. It seemed that the major he studied was not in vain. The salary level was much higher than Minister Qian's. He became more and more motivated about his future work. The three of them came to the restaurant, ordered their own meals, and sat down at a table. Wang Kai put down his plate and started chatting casually with Zhang Ling. You've had a lot of girlfriends, right? Why do you all like to ask this question? Zhang Ling smiled. I think you're pretty handsome, so I'm just asking casually. Don't mind. Zhang Ling couldn't help but feel surprised. Does being handsome mean you have to have several relationships? If I tell them that I already have a wife, they will definitely ask me questions. My wife had specifically told me that our relationship cannot be made public yet. But if I say no, will they be eager to introduce someone to me? According to Minister Qian, there are many single women here. This, keep it secret. Zhang Ling smiled vaguely. There's no need to force it. Everyone has their own privacy. So what does your family do? Wang Kai tactfully changed the subject. My family raises cattle, and that's what we mainly rely on for a living. Oh, it seems your hometown is very remote. After coming to a big city like Jiangxia, you don't want to go back. Zhang Ling looked up and thought about it, recalling the scene when he first came to Jiangxia to study at university. To be honest, we don't have such tall buildings where we are. When I came to Jiangxia to study, I was afraid to take the elevator because my legs were shaking so much when I saw those tall buildings. Har har. Wang Kai and Taozi couldn't help but laugh after hearing this, and they became more certain that Zhang Ling came out of the mountains. Just then, Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan also came to the restaurant. Taozi's eyes lit up and he saw them from a distance. Look, it's Mr. Lin and that assistant. Wang Kai glanced at Taozi with disdain. Why are you so excited? She has been watching you for several years. Has Ms. Lin ever even looked at you? Even the assistants around her look down on you. Just take a look. I don't mean anything else. Taozi scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Zhang Ling listened to their conversation and thought that it was no wonder that Taozi was lustful. A gentleman always wanted a beautiful lady. Women are really beautiful, and they are meant to be seen by others. I feel that Wang Kai, who is in his 30s, seems much more mature than Taozi and speaks so uprightly. Zhang Ling didn't want to get involved in their conversation and lowered his head to eat. Taozi, Mr. Lin has a really nice figure, especially that butt, it's pretty nice, isn't it? Wang Kai suddenly uttered such a vulgar remark, catching Zhang Ling off guard. The mouthful of rice that had just entered his mouth instantly sprayed out, right onto Wang Kai's face. Har har har. When the people around saw this scene, they couldn't help laughing. When Lin Xiyue heard the noise, she couldn't help but look over here. What are you doing? Cough, sorry, I just choked. Zhang Ling's face flushed and he explained hurriedly. It's okay, I'll go get another one. Wen Kai said as he wiped his face with a tissue. After a while, Wen Kai printed another one and walked over. Zhang Ling thought about what had just happened while eating and laughed from time to time. Suddenly, the cell phone on the table rang. He glanced at the caller ID, immediately picked up the phone, stood up and ran out of the restaurant. This action left everyone at the table a little confused. Lin Xiyue, who was far away, also noticed Zhang Ling's panic. Zhang Ling jogged all the way to a quiet corner next to the window and pressed the answer button. Hey! Dad, can you hear me? Yes, have you found a job? If not, come back to herd cattle. The slightly hoarse voice of my father came from the other end of the phone. Dad, I found a job. I called you several times but couldn't get through. Zhang Ling complained a little. The cattle need to eat grass, and they have been running far away these days, so there is no signal. You just found a job, and it will take some time for your salary to be paid. How about I sell a cow and send you some money? Zhang Ling chuckled. Now he no longer had to worry about food and clothing, and he also had a beloved wife. I can't keep it a secret from others, but I can't lie to my own father. I think it's time to tell him the good news. Dad, am I too handsome? I just started working and a beautiful girl fell in love with me. I even got a marriage certificate with her and she is very nice to me. Don't brag all the time. You must be out of money because of your relationship. I'll transfer money to you tomorrow. Zhang Ling's father obviously didn't believe it and thought it was a joke. Dad, I'm telling the truth. Zhang Ling explained hurriedly. Judging from Zhang Ling's tone, it might be true for dating, but getting married? That's a bit ridiculous. So his father asked righteously. Can she herd cattle? You must find a wife who can herd cattle. Otherwise, what will we do with the cattle at home? Okay, I'm herding the cattle. Without waiting for Zhang Ling to say anything else, he hung up the phone. Hey. Zhang Ling looked at the screen of his mobile phone, feeling a little amused and helpless. Not only do you not believe it, but you also want me to find someone who can herd cattle. Who is willing to herd cattle these days? Hey! By the way, ask my wife if she can ride a horse, and let her experience the beauty of the grassland when we go back home one day. Zhang Ling returned to the restaurant and stared at Lin Xiyue from a distance. Lin Xiyue raised her head and saw Zhang Ling smiling, and looked around. I thought, could it be coming towards me? Sure enough, Zhang Ling really walked towards her. Boss Lin, do you like horse riding? I'm very good at it. Chapter 15, He's so handsome, I can't help it. Horse riding. You're asking this in broad daylight in the company cafeteria? Lin Xiyue's face suddenly turned red. Zhang Ling's sudden words seemed so abrupt that she couldn't help but think of something wrong. Xu Wanwan felt that Zhang Ling asked because he knew how to ride a horse and had good skills, and asked whether Mr. Lin liked it. Mr. Lin, how? It can't be. Oh my god. Mr. Lin is overthinking. Xu Wanwan immediately started to help. I heard that you showed your abilities to everyone today and received praise from others. You are worthy of being hired by our CEO Lin himself. I am optimistic about you. Taozi was surprised and curious. He covered his mouth with his hand and muttered in a very low voice, so soft that only Wen Kai could barely hear it. Fuck. Brother Wang, I told you he was a fool. Look, he ran to Mr. Lin's desk. What did he say? He made Mr. Lin so uneasy. I didn't hear it clearly, but it felt like they had a story. Wen Kai also responded in a low voice. Zhang Ling also noticed that something was wrong with the atmosphere at this time, and the air around him seemed to become heavy. But he changed his mind and realized that he was just saying hello to the president and didn't do anything excessive. It shouldn't be a big deal. After all, it's just normal communication between employees and leaders, and it's not against the law. He turned his head and saw many people in the restaurant staring at him. Although he was a little surprised, he quickly calmed down. No wonder Xu Wanwan greeted me before and pretended not to know Lin Xiyue in the company. A simple conversation can cause huge waves. Zhang Ling stood up and spoke loudly. Thank you, Mr. Lin, for your cultivation. I will work hard. The sound echoed in the restaurant, appearing particularly clear. At this time, in a corner of the restaurant, several people from the operations department were discussing in a low voice. I heard that he was recruited by CEO Lin through an interview, but he turned out to be a bootlicker. A man in a business suit and black-framed glasses smiled disdainfully and spoke in a contemptuous tone. That's right. What's the big deal? He doesn't know General Lin's temper. If he makes a mistake, he will be fired anyway. A woman with a ponytail next to her echoed this, with jealousy gleaming in her eyes. But he is really handsome. A young girl muttered with a blushing face. Her eyes were always following Zhang Ling with a kind of crazy infatuation, and she completely ignored the strange looks from her colleagues around her. When Zhang Ling returned to the dining table, the food was no longer hot. Brother Wang, have you finished your meal? Zhang Ling tried to break the depressing atmosphere. Okay, let's go. Wang Kai stood up, straightened his clothes, and walked out of the restaurant first. Zhang Ling followed closely behind. When they returned to the technical department, they found that several team leaders of the production workshop were already standing at the door. Those team leaders were all around 27 or 28 years old. When they saw Wang Kai and the others coming back, they surrounded them as if they had seen their saviors. Master Wang, can you find someone to help me take a look? Every time I turn on the machine, it has to restart several times. It's a waste of time. Yes. I have similar problems on my line. Another team leader quickly agreed. Wang Kai frowned. Usually, when there were problems on the production line, they would report to the production manager first according to the prescribed procedures. Then the production manager will convey it to the technical department. Today's situation is so abnormal. Why are all the team leaders coming here in person all of a sudden? Have you reported it? Wang Kai asked seriously. One of the assembly line leaders spoke first. She said a little embarrassedly, "That's a waste of time. I don't think the problem is serious. Send someone to check it out." Yes. Master Wang. The other team leaders also nodded. Tazi was watching eagerly from the side and thought, "Oh my god, these team leaders are old employees, can't they usually solve such small problems by themselves? Look, there's a handsome guy coming to our technical department." Zhang Ling listened from the side and made a rough judgment in his mind. This problem is not big or small, just like the usual computer startup failure. Sometimes you have to restart several times before it can run normally. It may be that there is a small problem with a small component or a small problem with the program settings. Brother Wang, why don't I go take a look? If I can't solve it, I'll come back to ask you for help. Zhang Ling took the initiative to make a suggestion. He felt that this was also a good opportunity to demonstrate his abilities. Okay, then you go with them. Wang Kai thought about it and felt that he could let Zhang Ling go and give it a try. After all, young people need more exercise, and he thinks this young man has potential. Yeah. As soon as Zhang Ling finished speaking, he was surrounded by several enthusiastic production line team leaders and pulled out. Hey, hey, hey. Don't squeeze me. For a moment, a burst of cheerful laughter spread through the corridor. Tazi stood beside Wang Kai, leaned over the blinds, watched Zhang Ling's departing back, and said with a smile. This kid is quite popular. That's right. Maybe he will be a legend in Jianghua. Wang Kai said while looking out the window. Brother Wang, are you so optimistic about him? If it were you, would you dare to act wildly on the leader's desk? Wang Kai asked back. Tazi shook his head, he didn't have such courage. He looked out the window again and Zhang Ling's figure had disappeared around the corner. Brother Wang, do you dare to bet? What's the bet? Tazi whispered something in Wang Kai's ear. Wang Kai glared at him. This is too big a deal. Who knows, maybe he really dares. Wang Kai felt that Tazi was too mean. He actually made a bet with him to see if Zhang Ling dared to slap Lin Xiyue's butt. If this matter gets out of hand, she will be fired, but Tazi actually bet 2 months' salary on it. Well, I bet he doesn't dare. I bet he wouldn't dare. Har har. In this case, there would be no winner, so they decided that as long as Zhang Ling dared to flatter General Lin, he would be the winner no matter what reason he gave. 10 minutes later, Zhang Ling returned to the technical department, looking dusty and dirty. Poured a glass of water and took a sip. Brother Wang, there's nothing wrong with the machine. I checked it and everything is normal. Then what are you going to do? When I was checking, they all smiled at me, which made me very uncomfortable. Wang Kai threw his head back and laughed a few times. Har har, this Zhang Ling is funny. You'll be busy from now on. What do you mean? Are you saying that those team leaders did it on purpose? Oh my god. Could it be that what Minister Qian said was true, that the women here are all as fierce as wolves and tigers? Zhang Ling felt a chill on his back. Lin Xiyue, who was sitting in the office, was in a daze at this time. Boss Lin, are you still thinking about him? Lin Xiyue's thoughts were interrupted. After a few seconds, she shyly said, What? He is in the company. What else can you think about? You weren't like this before. Now you've become so gentle. Lin Xiyue touched her face and asked, Is there? Of course. And you look better today than ever before, so rosy and rosy. Xu Wanwan said jokingly. Har har, really? Wanwan, you should also find a boyfriend. Xu Wanwan walked around the office and suddenly turned around and said. Are men really that good? Since you've already found one, I'll try to find one too. I think Zhang Ling is very popular in the company. Chapter 16, I can't say it yet, my wife is the CEO. Him? Handsome and cute. Har har, by the way, that driving school I told you about enrolling him in. Lin Xiyue tilted her head slightly and asked curiously. Don't worry, my classmate is a coach there. Then he added, he pursued me before. But now we are just ordinary friends. With him around, he will definitely be able to teach Zhang Ling well. Lin Xiyue couldn't help but laugh softly after hearing this. Har har, that's fine too, it's easier to get things done with acquaintances. Har har, he even suspected at that time whether Zhang Ling was my boyfriend. When I said no, he breathed a sigh of relief. As Xu Wanwan said this, a smug look appeared on her face. Lin Xiyue raised her eyebrows and asked jokingly, could it be that your classmate is still interested in you? Maybe. It's a pity that he doesn't understand me. I'll just treat him as a friend. Xu Wanwan laughed as she spoke. It was really not easy for an assistant to get along with the president like sisters. Lin Xiyue smiled and glanced at her a few times, but soon her thoughts involuntarily shifted to Zhang Ling. I was wondering what my husband was busy with in the technical department right now. But in the company's technical department, it is not as quiet and comfortable as the office. There are computer equipment and various lines everywhere. Technicians are occasionally busy typing on the keyboard, and occasionally relax between tasks. Zhang Ling was sitting at his workstation, staring at Wang Kai and Taozi in amazement. Oh my! Are these two too bored at work? To actually use this kind of thing as a bet? This is really a waste of time. I saw Wang Kai and Taozi huddled together, with malicious smiles on their faces. Wang Kai spoke first, Zhang Ling, if you don't have the courage, forget it, Taozi and I will just talk privately. Taozi also echoed, yes. Zhang Ling, Mr. Lin, if you don't dare, you can change her assistant, L. Zhang Ling looked at them both in disbelief. You two are not sick, are you? Take a month's salary and bet whether I dare to slap the president? You will lose miserably. Wang Kai and Taozi looked at each other. Wang Kai said disdainfully, you said that yourself. Taozi also emphasized, that's right, don't be a coward when the time comes. Zhang Ling blinked. These two guys are usually not honest. They always stare at Lin Xiyue and discuss trivial things behind her back. Humph, I have to teach them a lesson today. Originally, he didn't want to bother with the ridiculous things these two boring people did, but when he thought of their previous actions, he couldn't help it. Zhang Ling nodded. It was just patting his wife's butt. Since you are so dirty, I might as well take this opportunity to teach you a lesson. When Taozi saw Zhang Ling nod, he thought he was just trying to have a quick conversation. I was just bragging, so I smiled and said, har har, I think you are just talking, don't be scared to death when the time comes. But Zhang Ling said seriously, well, but you are not allowed to default on your debt. If you dare to pay an extra month's salary, I will also shoot the female assistant next to Mr. Lin. When Wang Kai and Daozi heard this, they were stunned at first, then they raised their heads and laughed out loud. They laughed so hard that tears came out. They thought Zhang Ling was just bragging and didn't take his words seriously at all. The afternoon time was like fine sand sliding through your fingertips. Nothing special happened, and before you knew it, half a day had passed by quietly. When it was time to get off work, Zhang Ling took out his cell phone and sent a message to Lin Xiyue. His fingers danced lightly across the screen. Honey, I'm going back to the dormitory tonight. My roommate doesn't know you and I are together yet, so I have to find a suitable time to move back home. Is this okay? After seeing the message, Lin Xiyue smiled warmly. What Zhang Ling said was right. He really needed some time to talk to his roommate about this matter. Okay, my little husband, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to sleep at night because of missing me? I'm scared. Har har, don't forget to tell my parents about my situation. Zhang Ling imagined Lin Xiyue's cute appearance. Okay, I missed you. I miss you too, honey. Zhang Ling put the phone back into his pocket. The sweet feeling of being in love lingered in his heart, making him feel very happy. He walked towards the parking lot with brisk steps. At this moment, a team leader on the production line walked up to Zhang Ling. She is Li Minute, and there is a different meaning in her eyes. How about I take you back? Zhang Ling turned his head and saw that it was Li Minute, and his heart tightened slightly. Thinking back to the afternoon in the workshop, Li Minute always stared at him and smiled, and that smile made him feel uncomfortable. No need, Sister Li, I have a car. Zhang Ling replied quickly. Why do you have to ride an electric bike? I want to treat you to a meal. Really, thanks, Sister Li. There's a dead body lying in my dormitory. I have to go back and check. Zhang Ling made up an excuse. Lying dead. Li Minute frowned, seeming a little surprised by the word. Oh well. Yeah. Zhang Ling responded. Then he quickened his pace and walked towards his electric car. More than half an hour later, when Zhang Ling returned to the dormitory, before he even entered the door, a strong smell of instant noodles hit him in the face. This guy Chen Guang, I wonder if he will be at home all these 2 days. He pushed open the door and was startled by the sight he saw. There were 6 or 7 instant noodle buckets placed in a haphazard manner on the table, like waste left over from a battlefield. Morning light. Zhang Ling shouted. No one responded. He felt somewhat puzzled, so he took a few steps inside. Suddenly, Chen Guang attacked from behind and pushed Zhang Ling onto the bed. Tell me, where did you go last night? Chen Guang's voice sounded in Zhang Ling's ears with a questioning tone. Oh my god. You scared me. I thought someone was breaking into their house. Zhang Ling shouted. Chen Guang pulled Zhang Ling up and couldn't help laughing when he saw his miserable appearance. Har har, are you so timid? Why do you seem so exhausted? Are you tired from work? How could Zhang Ling have the nerve to tell Chen Guang that he was with his wife last night, and they were sweet and affectionate for most of the night? His face turned slightly red, and he answered somewhat embarrassedly. It's not tiring to go to work. My colleagues are all easy to get along with. Really? Chen Guang answered with a puzzled look on his face. He knew Zhang Ling too well. When Zhang Ling was talking, his eyes were wandering, and it was obvious that he was hiding something from him. Besides, he works in an agency, so even if he is busy with work, he won't stay out all night. I left home early yesterday morning, and it has been 2 days and 1 night since then. This is totally unreasonable. Chen Guang hesitated for a moment, various thoughts flashing through his mind, and he smiled slyly. Zhang Ling, you wouldn't sleep with a female client just for sales, would you? Chapter 17, Dinner. My roommate is a big eater. Huh. Zhang Ling was surprised. How come Chen Guang is so experienced? Could he have figured out what I did last night? Impossible, he must be tricking me. How is that possible? Zhang Ling retorted quickly. Brother, stop pretending. There are many such cases out there now. Especially some women selling insurance use this trick. Chen Guang said this seriously, as if he knew everything about this kind of thing. Zhang Ling shook his head. Chen Guang, you should find a job. You stay at home all day and do nothing but think about random things. Change the subject. He didn't want to discuss this any further because the more he explained, the more likely it was to be misunderstood. I'm not imagining things. Normally, I wouldn't be able to move you. Look at you just now. You didn't have any strength at all. Har har. Chen Guang is such a person. Once he makes up his mind about something, it is difficult for him to change his mind. In this case, it is better to do the opposite. You want to find a rich woman, don't you? Why do you hide at home and eat instant noodles every day? With your body, even if you meet a rich woman, I'm afraid it won't work. To Chen Guang, this seemed to make sense. You have a job and your family has sent me some money. Please treat me to oysters. Zhang Ling smiled. Walk. After a while, the two arrived at a seafood buffet restaurant. There was a long queue at the door of this restaurant, and it took 10 minutes to get in. The waiter arranged a seat for them. Chen Guang was about to get his food when his eyes inadvertently glanced at Zhang Ling's wrist. Oh shit, Wan Gua? This watch is not simple. As far as Chen Guang knows, the price of this IWC watch must be around 100,000. Zhang Ling's family raises cattle. How much can a cow sell for? To buy this watch, you have to sell at least 10 cows. An idea immediately popped up in Chen Guang's mind. Are you being kept by a rich woman? After saying that, he waited for Zhang Ling's answer. When Zhang Ling heard this, he felt both amused and helpless. He scratched his head. Why did Chen Guang bring up this topic again? Was he obsessed with the rich woman? But judging from his reaction, he seems to be quite knowledgeable. Zhang Ling wears this watch when he is at work during the day. Wang Kai and Taozi in the company all wear Jaeger-LeCoultre watches on their wrists, and everyone seems to be used to it. No one talked to him about watches. So after returning to the dormitory, he didn't take the watch seriously. He didn't expect Chen Guang to have such a big reaction. This really caught him off guard. Judging from Chen Guang's expression, he will not give up until the reason is explained today. Har, don't make blind guesses. I just thought that I would wear formal clothes to work, and a watch would make me look better and more formal. Then he hurriedly explained, shaking his wrist as he spoke, this watch is not expensive, it's just a replica I bought on Pink Sixy, it's only 699. When Chen Guang heard that it was a counterfeit purchased on Pink Sixy, his surprise immediately turned into laughter. Oh my god! You are amazing! You almost scared me just now. I thought you were really lucky and got married to a rich woman. The people around him were once again attracted by his movements and cast strange looks at him, but Chen Guang couldn't care less about that at the moment. Zhang Ling rolled his eyes at him unhappily and muttered, You're the only one with a wild imagination. After that, he stood up to get something to eat. I saw him carrying a few small buckets in a heroic manner, walking to the oyster area, filling them with 100 oysters, and then walking back staggeringly. This alarmed the waiter, and he ran after him like a gust of wind. With a professional smile on his face, his tone was firm, Sir, please take less and take more to avoid unnecessary waste. Zhang Ling looked at the waiter with a puzzled look on his face and asked, Didn't you say, eat whatever you want? You can eat as much as you want, but if you take too much and don't finish it and waste it, you'll be fined, the waiter explained patiently. When Zhang Ling heard this, he thought it made sense. Extravagance and waste were the most shameful things. But Chen Guang on the side was not happy. This seafood buffet costs 399 per person. It's rare for Zhang Ling to be generous. You, the waiter, are causing trouble. He frowned and said to the waiter in a dissatisfied manner, Waiter, look at us two guys, both over 1.8 meters tall, with big appetites, it's not hard for each of us to eat 50 oysters. The waiter still kept smiling and patiently explained to Chen Guang again, That's not the case, sir. I mainly hope you can finish eating before taking it to avoid waste. I didn't expect that once Chen Guang got angry, he would really start a fight. He was rather self-willed, pointing at Zhang Ling and saying, Go and bring me another 100, and give me some salmon too. Are you sure? I'm a big eater, don't you know? The waiter looked helpless and had to nod and avoid the question. In this way, they ate from 6:15 until 8 o'clock, and then the two of them walked out of the restaurant. Zhang Ling was still sober. He thought that after eating so much seafood, he might feel thirsty, so he bought 2 bottles of mineral water at the convenience store in front of the restaurant. The two walked about 100 meters and came to a small bridge. At this time, Chen Guang's face suddenly turned pale, like a piece of white paper. He felt his stomach churning and rising in waves. He could no longer bear it and cried out, Wow. He lay on the bridge railing and started vomiting. The scene was like feeding a big meal to the fish in the river. Oh damn. I ate a waste of food tonight. Chen Guang shouted in annoyance while vomiting. Zhang Ling was stroking his back. You don't want to pay the fine, you're just asking for trouble. Brother, you spent 800 yuan to treat me to a meal, I can accept that, but a fine of 200 yuan is not acceptable. Oh. Chen Guang spoke intermittently while vomiting. I said you too. I ate 80 oysters and you ate 120. You also ate a pound of salmon and drank some wine. It's better to vomit. Wine and seafood are prone to gout. Zhang Ling shook his head helplessly, looking at Chen Guang's embarrassed look, and found it funny. Fuck you, you are such a bad brother. I vomited like this and you are not even laughing. No, I didn't laugh. Bullshit. I heard it all. When Lin Xiyue got home, she told Lin Xiyue and Su Ran what happened. Lin Xiyue also specially cleaned up the storage room on the second floor and temporarily gave it to Zhang Ling as a study. Learning never ends. Now that I'm working, I have to continue studying and sorting out information. Lin Xiyue was also busy. This would be her husband's office from now on. It was already 11 o'clock when I finished my work, and then I washed up and lay down. Lying on the bed like this, I felt like something was missing. I used to sleep alone, but Zhang Ling slept on this bed last night. When she closed her eyes, she could still vaguely feel that Zhang Ling was beside her. She groped in the drawer and took out her little treasure. The battery is out. Chapter 18. I want to face you every day and sleep with you every night. Lin Xiyue lay quietly on the bed, thoughts swirling in her mind, and she couldn't fall asleep. She frowned slightly, wondering if it was her husband who moved the drawer. When she thought of this, she suddenly felt shy and quickly pulled the quilt to cover her blushing face. This is too embarrassing. She muttered quietly under the quilt, but the movements of her hands betrayed her true thoughts. She fumbled for the phone beside her, slid her slender fingers quickly across the screen, and sent a message to Zhang Ling. Are you asleep? Husband, are you thinking about me? After sending the message, Lin Xiyue kept staring at the phone screen. Time passed by, but no response was received. She couldn't help but guess that Zhang Ling might have fallen asleep. When Lin Xiyue thought about how handsome and charming her young husband was, her heart was filled with sweetness and she wished she could hug him every day. Just as she was immersed in the thoughts of her lover, her cell phone suddenly vibrated slightly. Lin Xiyue hurriedly picked up the phone, looked at the content on the screen, and immediately smiled. Zhang Ling's reply was, "My dear wife, I just fell asleep. However, when I was half asleep, I feel like you are a little angel by my side. I'll see your message when I wake up." Lin Xiyue felt warmed by Zhang Ling's reply and sent another message immediately. Me too, I feel like I can't sleep without you by my side. You are like sunshine, you have completely entered my life, and I miss you so much that I can't fall asleep now. Don't worry, honey. I've already thought of a perfect reason to move out. I'll do it in the next 2 days. Just bear with me for a while. Well, I'll just hold it in for a little while tonight. By the way, honey, did you touch my drawer? But it doesn't matter, since I have you now, I was planning to throw that thing away anyway. Zhang Ling was lying on the bed. After receiving this message, he was stunned at first, and then fell into deep thought. Drawer? What drawer? He tried hard to remember. Suddenly, I remembered that when I got up in the morning, my legs were so sore, so I sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed them. I found a drawer that was not closed tightly, so I opened it out of curiosity and took a look. I found a massager inside. At the time, I thought, since my legs were so sore, it wouldn't hurt to give it a try. He put the massager on his calves and massaged them for about 10 minutes, and his legs really didn't feel sore anymore. Honey, don't throw it away, that thing is so useful, it gives me a very comfortable massage. And it has several gears. I want to buy another one and send it back to my hometown as a gift for my dad. When Lin Xiyue saw the message, her face suddenly turned red. She hesitated for a long time, not knowing how to reply. Honey, good night. Let's meet in the underground garage tomorrow morning. It's too late today. Zhang Ling yawned and tapped the screen of his mobile phone a few times. Okay, wife. After sending the message, Zhang Ling seemed to be drained of all his energy and soon fell asleep. The next day, a little after 6 in the morning, Zhang Ling slept particularly soundly this time, until dawn. When he woke up, he felt full of strength, like a fully charged battery. He stretched lazily, sat up, looked at Lu Chengwang who was still sleeping, and shook his head helplessly. While Zhang Ling was packing his things, he occasionally looked up at Chen Guang who was still sleeping soundly. How can this guy sleep so well? He couldn't help but walk over, stretched out his hand to shake Chen Guang, and shouted loudly, Lu Chengguang, if you keep sleeping like this, you will be ruined. I may move out in the next 2 days. After saying that, Zhang Ling stood beside the bed waiting for Chen Guang's reaction. Unexpectedly, Lu Chengwang did not mutter a few words or turn over as usual, but showed no reaction at all. After more than 10 seconds, Lu Chengwang sat up as if he had been sprung up by a spring and asked loudly, "What? You want to move out and live with someone else?" Zhang Ling was stunned for a moment. He didn't say this just now. What do you mean by cohabitation or not? My workplace is nearly 40 minutes away from here. It's not bad on normal days, but it's really troublesome when it rains. I'm always in a mess when I get to work. Chen Guang scratched the back of his messy head and frowned even more tightly. That's not right. I'm thinking about these things right after I start working. Could it be that Zhang Ling is really hiding something from me? Besides, didn't he just buy an electric car a few days ago? Isn't the purpose of buying an electric car to solve the problem of traveling? Why do you suddenly want to move out? Are the benefits of your company so good? Is there a house for you to live in? Chen Guang asked with a puzzled look on his face. Maybe Zhang Ling's behavior has been too abnormal in the past 2 days. He didn't come home for the past 2 days, and after he came back he suddenly became wealthy. Now he's asking to move out. This series of actions is like a fog, lingering in Chen Guang's heart. He even couldn't help but speculate that maybe Zhang Ling was really being kept by a rich woman, otherwise why would it be so strange? When Zhang Ling heard Chen Guang's question, his heart skipped a beat and he became a little panicked. He answered with a stiff face, yes, the agent is afraid of having no place to live. He didn't dare tell Chen Guang the truth. If he told it to others, who knows what Chen Guang would think? You will be considered a gigolo. Besides, Lin Xiyue had warned him many times before that he should think carefully about this matter. Wait until you have achieved some success at work, then you can pursue her openly. How glorious it will be. When Zhang Ling thought of this, he couldn't help but laugh. It was obvious that his wife had taken a fancy to him, but she insisted that he pursue her publicly and let everyone in the company know, just like she was performing a romantic drama. Just chase her. After all, she is your wife. If she wants this face, how can you not give it to her? Just think of this as adding some interesting spice to their love story. What are you standing there laughing at? If you don't want to tell me, it's useless for me to ask anyway. Chen Guang muttered. After saying that, he lay down lazily again and pulled the quilt over his head. When Zhang Ling saw this situation, he shook his head in his heart. This won't do. How can a college graduate not have any ambition at all? He spends all the money his family sends him every month on those game skins. No, I have to find a way to stimulate him. Hey! I originally wanted to introduce an older sister to you. But it seems like you have no chance now. Zhang Ling deliberately raised his voice and secretly glanced at Chen Guang's reaction. What? Chen Guang jumped up from the bed as if he was electrocuted. He became energetic in an instant and looked really funny. Many of my colleagues are single, how about you? You don't even have a job. Hey! As Zhang Ling spoke, he shook his head and looked like he was disappointed in someone. Now that things have come to this, Chen Guang is not a fool and he will definitely understand what I mean. Sure enough, Chen Guang got out of bed without saying a word, rushed to the bathroom in his slippers and started washing up. Zhang Ling, how old is that big sister? Is she rich? Chen Guang asked vaguely with toothpaste foam in his mouth. Zhang Ling actually just said this to inspire his fighting spirit, but he didn't have anyone specific in mind. He suddenly thought of Minister Qian. Chapter 19, Anxious and Wild, Getting into My Wife's Car. I heard that Minister Qian is still single even though he is in his 40s. Although his monthly salary is only a little over 10,000 yuan, his annual salary is not low. Chen Guang has always hoped that a rich woman would fall in love with him. Maybe this could really happen. Even if it doesn't, at least it can give him some hope and motivation. Har, Chen Guang, do you like women in their 40s? But this woman looks like she's in her 30s. She is so well maintained. And she said she likes young guys. Zhang Ling said with a sly smile. Oh my god, this is awesome. I love it this way. Chen Guang danced with excitement and almost threw his toothbrush away. Really? Then I'll help you two get together later. Zhang Ling held back his laughter and tried hard to look serious. Har, okay, then how old is she in her 40s? I didn't ask about that. Probably just in his early 40s. Zhang Ling answered vaguely. Chen Guang nodded with satisfaction when he heard this. Okay, I'll go find a job today, as long as she's not over 45 years old. Why? Zhang Ling asked curiously. Then I definitely can't find someone older than my mom. Otherwise, how will she have the face to call me mom in the future, don't you think? Chen Guang said seriously. R. Zhang Ling was shocked and thought, how could I forget about my age? Is this age a little too old? But he was relieved immediately. Never mind, my wife is still 12 years older than me. I think as long as two people love each other, age is not a problem at all. You are right. I'll leave first then. Okay, don't forget, just tell her that I like mature women. Zhang Ling nodded slightly, then turned around, looked at him deeply, and a meaningful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Har har, okay. It takes about half an hour to ride an electric scooter from the youth apartment to Jianghua Group when the road conditions are good. If you arrive during rush hour in the morning or evening and the roads are congested, it is common to spend an extra 7 or 8 minutes. At this time, Zhang Ling's mind was full of Lin Xiyue's words last night that she had something to discuss with him, so he came to the company's underground garage early in the morning. The weather in June this year was exceptionally cool and comfortable. There was a slight chill in the underground garage, like a layer of gauze gently brushing against the skin. Zhang Ling looked at the garage entrance from time to time. He glanced at his watch and it was just 7 o'clock. At this moment, the squeaking sound of wheels rubbing against the ground broke the silence of the garage and instantly hit Zhang Ling's heart. His eyes immediately looked in the direction where the voice came from, and his strong intuition told him that Lin Xiyue was coming. The moment he saw the license plate, he could no longer remain calm. The corners of his mouth rose uncontrollably, his eyes flashed with excitement, and his feet involuntarily moved towards the car. Lin Xiyue parked the car steadily, and Zhang Ling rushed over like an arrow. His movements were so fast that they were almost instinctive, as if his body was no longer controlled by his brain. He opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat, the whole process done in one go. Wife, you're here quite early. Zhang Ling's face was full of joy, and he couldn't hide it. Lin Xiyue smiled sweetly and said, why didn't you come earlier? I was afraid that my little husband would miss me so much that he would go crazy. Look at the way you ran over here just now. You looked a little bit wretched. Really? Har har. Zhang Ling scratched his head a little embarrassedly, but still had a bright smile on his face. He knew that Lin Xiyue was joking. This relaxed atmosphere made him feel extremely comfortable, and the tension in his heart gradually disappeared. If I say yes, then yes. Let me hug you. Lin Xiyue opened her arms with a look of longing on her face. At this moment, she just wanted to hug Zhang Ling tightly, feel his body temperature, and dispel the longing for him after not seeing him for one night. Yeah. Zhang Ling responded softly, and then hugged Lin Xiyue tightly in his arms. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The familiar scent of Lin Xiyue lingered at his nose, making him feel extremely at ease. His arms tightly wrapped around her, as if he wanted to merge her completely into his body. I thought silently in my heart that even if we were separated for just one night, the feeling of missing each other was really unpleasant. Although they are husband and wife, they have not made their relationship public because of their special relationship. In this small space inside the car, they seem to be in a world that belongs only to them. Everything in the outside world has nothing to do with them. At this moment, the longing was like a surging tide, completely drowning them. They couldn't help but hug each other tightly. The car seemed to sense their sweet atmosphere and shook from time to time as if it was celebrating for them. The temperature inside the car seemed to rise because of their hug, and it became warm. Half an hour later, Lin Xiyue reapplied her lipstick in front of the rearview mirror. She pursed her lips slightly and stared at herself in the mirror intently. Honey, take a look at the driving theory when you have time. When you want to practice driving, ask Wanwan to say hello to the instructor. Coach? Oh, learning to drive. Zhang Ling responded somewhat dazedly, his thoughts still immersed in what just happened. Have you told your roommate that you're moving out? Lin Xiyue turned her head. Har har, yes, I told him that the distance is far and we need to find a place closer. He didn't doubt it. Zhang Ling replied with a smile. Lin Xiyue held Zhang Ling's arm and put her face against him. When she thought that her young husband would soon live with her, her heart felt as sweet as if she had eaten honey. By the way, husband, if someone asks you in the future why you found a woman this old, what will you say? Lin Xiyue suddenly raised her head and looked at Zhang Ling. Although she knew that Zhang Ling liked her, the age difference had always been a little knot in her heart. She was afraid that Zhang Ling would change his mind because of other people's opinions. Wife, don't worry about it. In my eyes, you are like a flower that never fades. What the years have left on you is not the traces of aging, but a unique charm. It is a charm that deeply fascinates me. Those who say you are old have short-sightedness and cannot see the good in you. Besides, I love you, this is just between us, what does it have to do with others? I won't let those insignificant remarks affect us. As he said this, Zhang Ling kissed Lin Xiyue. Hate it. I'm talking to you about something serious. Lin Xiyue complained, but her heart was blooming. Zhang Ling's answer made her very satisfied, and also made her more certain of Zhang Ling's feelings for her. I'm talking about serious matters. No one else can control the woman I like. Besides, you're so beautiful, others must be envious of me. What do you have to worry about? Well. Lin Xiyue raised the corners of her mouth, and the worries in her heart completely disappeared. She leaned on Zhang Ling, enjoying this sweet moment. Hubby, your parents, will they also think that we are not suitable for each other? Zhang Ling thought about it and said something that made Lin Xiyue laugh out loud. Wife, all men have the same vision. If my dad saw you, he would definitely think you are good-looking. Har har, how could you make fun of your elders? Lin Xiyue laughed so hard that she fell over. By the way, wife, there is something I want you to cooperate with me on. Zhang Ling suddenly sat up straight. What's up? I made a bet with others that I would spank you in front of them. After Zhang Ling said this, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. Chapter 20, Damn. He really dares. What? Bet. Lin Xiyue looked at Zhang Ling in disbelief, thinking to herself, how could this guy have such an idea? It's really laughable. Well, those two guys from the technical department thought I was stupid and bet a month's salary with me. I don't care about the money, but I'm pissed that they are always peeking at you. So, you want to teach them a lesson? Yeah. Zhang Ling nodded vigorously. Lin Xiyue burst into laughter. It turned out that her husband was a jealous man. He couldn't stand anyone looking at his wife. She thought Zhang Ling's reaction was particularly cute. Okay, then tell me how I can cooperate with you. Today during dinner, let's time it right. I'll go into the elevator with you guys, then stand behind you and I'll reach out and pat you. As Zhang Ling spoke, he gestured with his hands, as if he had already seen the surprised expressions of the two guys. And then? I can't pretend I don't know. Lin Xiyue looked at Zhang Ling with some embarrassment. She felt embarrassed whenever she imagined the scene. Well, I haven't thought about it yet, so I'm asking you. Zhang Ling stuck out his tongue and looked at Lin Xiyue a little embarrassedly. He was only thinking about teaching those two people a lesson and didn't consider what would happen next. Lin Xiyue looked at Zhang Ling and felt both angry and amused. We're still making a bet, and I haven't thought of a way out yet. If I don't resist, anyone will dare to touch me in the future. She began to think seriously, her brows slightly furrowed, and a hint of seriousness appeared in her eyes. Okay, then you do as you wish, and I'll take care of the rest. Zhang Ling smiled and kissed Lin Xiyue again. Aha! Zhang Ling thought to himself, my wife has already agreed, so what is there to worry about? It would be fine if Wang Kai and Daozi had known better and not mentioned that today. But if they dare to bring it up, don't blame me for being rude. Okay, husband, you go out first, we'll go one in front and one behind. Wife, why do you make it seem like we are having an affair? Zhang Ling joked. Have you ever stolen? Lin Xiyue asked back. I didn't, I just saw a similar scene in a short video. Lin Xiyue covered her mouth and burst out laughing. Alright, hurry up and go up. There will be more and more people here soon. If you are seen, you will have to explain. Yeah. Zhang Ling responded, got out of the car, and exaggeratedly made a sneaky gesture, which made Lin Xiyue laugh continuously. You know what, it really looked like he was secretly having a tryst with someone else's wife. In the technical department. Wang Kai also came early today, his fingers tapping quickly on the computer keyboard. When he saw Zhang Ling coming, he immediately shouted. Xiao Zhang, you are here, come and take a look at the program I wrote. In the morning, you input the program into the second assembly line, and the debugging of the robot arm is handed over to someone else.
Okay, Brother Wang.
Zhang Ling agreed readily and checked the program by the way. Before 8 o'clock, the people in charge of debugging had arrived at the company one after another. Taozi quickly arranged people to go to the production line with Zhang Ling. As soon as he arrived at the production line, there was a big mess. The safety officers and several team leaders surrounded Zhang Ling so tightly that he couldn't get in or out.
Nowadays, it's not just beautiful women who get stared at.
If a man is handsome, he will also become the focus of everyone's attention. What's more, these women are particularly bold and come up to ask for contact information.
Zhang Ling, add me as a friend.
Yeah.
Zhang Ling, you are so handsome, your looks are simply amazing.
Another one also echoed. If you have any problem, just come to the technical department to find me. Why do you have to add me as a friend?
Zhang Ling responded slowly with a smile on his face.
Of course it's to seduce you. Har har. A bold girl said with a smile.
Pick me up? Damn, are all women so crazy nowadays?
There are many men in the company, and it's not like I'm in a land of women. Why do you have to keep staring at me alone? This one do.
Absolutely not.
After all, he is a married man now, so he can't let Lin Xiyue feel that he is unreliable and anyone can come up and make fun of him. Zhang Ling cleared his throat and said seriously, my appearance, although handsome and charming, seems to have some capital to seduce women.
But I don't like being seduced by women, sorry.
What? When the team leaders heard this, their faces flushed red. They never expected Zhang Ling to say such straightforward words.
It's obvious that he looks down on himself.
Now that things have come to this, who would have the nerve to come up to him and ask for his contact information? Xiao Song, the debugger who came with Zhang Ling, looked at the scene and couldn't help but smile and said to the girls, why don't you add me? I love being seduced by women.
TSK.
Look at you, you're not even 30 yet, and you've already got this Mediterranean hairstyle. I can tell at a glance that your kidneys are not in good condition. Do you want me to be a widow? A girl complained mercilessly. Xiao Song subconsciously touched a few hairs on his head and explained awkwardly, this is inherited from my family. Several security guards covered their mouths and laughed, then walked away slowly. Zhang Ling entered the program into the computer case, and after carefully confirming that it was correct, he said to Xiao Song, it's up to you now. However, he did not leave in a hurry, but stayed aside and watched Xiao Song debug the chuck on the robotic arm. Xiao Song finished debugging and started the machine running for a while. Only after they saw that the production line was running smoothly did they call the safety officer to the scene. Okay, I'll leave this to you.
Okay, thank you Brother Song. When Xiao Song heard this title, he couldn't help but feel happy and felt quite pleased.
After returning to the department, Xiao Song repeated Zhang Ling's words. When others heard it, they all felt that Zhang Ling might have offended those team leaders this time. What are you afraid of? I'm here to study technology, not to have a love affair with them, har har. Wang Kai felt that Zhang Ling was really bold. It seemed that he might really dare to do what they had bet on before. Wang Kai secretly thought in his heart, if Zhang Ling, this reckless guy, really dared to slap the president on the buttocks, he would not be fired, right?
Zhang Ling, come here for a moment.
What is it, Brother Wang? Wang Kai was wondering in his heart, Zhang Ling is a good candidate, why did he cause such a trouble? He is really looking for trouble, alas. Let's just forget about that bet. Taozi was unhappy when he heard this. Brother Wang, if you surrender you will lose half of your money. Wang Kai hesitated for a moment. Okay, at worst I can help you plead for mercy then. Zhang Ling was completely confused. What are you begging for? I'm not bragging to you. If I slap the president on the butt, not only will she not be angry, she will even smile at me, do you believe it? Come on. Wang Kai just thought that this was too risky and a bit cruel for Zhang Ling. Now that he has made such big talk, let him be. It was soon noon. The three of them deliberately kept time and did not come out after entering the elevator, waiting for Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan to enter the elevator. After a while, the elevator arrived at the third floor. Bite. The elevator door on the third floor opened, and Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan walked in. As if they didn't see the three of them, they turned around and pressed the elevator button. Wang Kai glanced at Zhang Ling, while Taozi couldn't help wanting to laugh.
Two par sounds were heard. What the hell? Wang Kai and Taozi exclaimed at the same time. Chapter 21, Not everyone can touch a tiger's butt. They never thought that Zhang Ling was so brave and actually took action. At this moment, Lin Xiyue was also dumbfounded. My husband had informed me in advance, but he didn't say to take a picture of Xu Wanwan's butt as well. Xu Wanwan felt her scalp tingling and her heart was filled with panic. When Lin Xiyue told her about this in the morning, she couldn't help but laugh. In this narrow elevator, it only took a few seconds to get from the third floor to the fourth floor, but it felt like several long centuries. They turned their heads to look at Zhang Ling almost at the same time. Zhang Ling was still waiting there stupidly, and Lin Xiyue could think of a clever way to resolve the awkwardness. Suddenly I remembered that when I discussed this matter with Lin Xiyue, I did not mention Xu Wanwan. Just then, with a ding-dong sound, the elevator door opened. Wang Kai and Taozi stuck close to the sides of the elevator and carefully sneaked out. After they walked out for a distance, they looked back again. When the elevator door closed again, Taozi finally couldn't help it and burst out laughing. Har, brother Wang, I've lost a month's salary. That's right. Me too. But what I'm more concerned about now is what will happen next. Har. The two men walked into the restaurant, carrying their plates, and chuckled from time to time. The people around them had no idea what they were laughing at. Not long after, Zhang Ling came out of the elevator. He was smiling and pretending to be calm as he walked over with a tray of food in his hand. Wang Kai and Taozi both widened their eyes when they saw his look. They were curious about what happened in the elevator. Zhang Ling, however, acted as if nothing had happened. He didn't say a word and just focused on eating. But there were different lip prints on both sides of the face. Zhang Ling, won't you explain? What's there to explain? You two saw it. I slapped both of their butts. I don't need to tell you what you should do, don't play tricks. Wang Kai and Taozi looked at each other, took out their mobile phones and started transferring money. Be willing to accept defeat. The transfer notification sound was particularly crisp. Zhang Ling watched the balance go into his account and nodded with satisfaction. With a hint of cunning, Zhang Ling turned his head and looked in the direction of Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan. Can you tell me now? What's going on with the lipstick marks on your face? Wang Kai persisted. Zhang Ling shook his hair casually. Maybe I'm too handsome. They didn't get angry. Instead, they gave me a kiss and said I was bold and that they liked men like me. Oh shit. Is this true? Taozi exclaimed. Of course it's true. Do you think women wouldn't know when men peek at them? Wang Kai and Taozi seemed to be thinking about something. Soon, Zhang Ling finished eating. Brother Wang, I'll go down first. The assembly department seems to be quite busy. I'll go and help out. Okay, go ahead. After Zhang Ling left, Wang Kai and Taozi started whispering to each other, their heads close together, and they laughed from time to time. He had finished his meal but insisted on staying in the restaurant. When they saw Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan getting up to clear the plates, they hurried to follow suit. Brother Wang, we can't let that kid take all the advantage, right? Taozi rubbed his hands. You're right. Since they like straight men, what do we have to be afraid of? Wang Kai raised his lips with a wicked smile. Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan looked at each other, as if seeing through their thoughts, and deliberately slowed down their pace. Come to the elevator entrance and press the elevator door. Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan entered the elevator, and Wang Kai and Taozi followed them in. Cough. Taozi coughed lightly, hinting at something. The elevator door closed, and a subtle atmosphere filled the small space. Zhang Ling returned to the department and walked around the assembly room, looking at the busy people and neatly arranged tools. Then I walked to the table and looked at the drawing to help thread the needle. The other people in the assembly room started chatting with him at this time. One of them smiled and said, Xiao Zhang, you are lucky. Lao Wang is personally teaching you. In less than a month, you may be better than Taozi. Zhang Ling responded modestly, no, Taozi is a veteran employee. His years of work experience are enough for me to learn for a while. He looked at the drawings intently, his hands moving non-stop. The other person curled his lips and said, oh. He only knows how to flatter Lao Wang. He is the first apprentice brought up by Lao Wang. In fact, he always asks Lao Wang to solve many problems he can't solve. What they said was indeed the truth. Taozi came to the company with Wang Kai, and the technology had remained at the same stage. But he has a good master. Wang Kai will help Taozi solve any problem that he cannot solve. Zhang Ling secretly wondered if these two people were trying to cause trouble. Isn't the reason for learning PLC by yourself to stay away from the infighting in the office? How can an assembler not obey a team leader? He didn't want to get involved in this topic too much, so he just said casually, Har, isn't this normal? I'm following Brother Wang now, and I'll ask him for help if I can't solve something. At this time, Wang Kai shouted from the next door, Zhang Ling. There was a hint of anger in his voice. When Zhang Ling heard Wang Kai's call, he immediately put down the drawings in his hand and ran over quickly. Wang Kai and Daozi were seen covering their faces, with clear marks of slaps on their faces. When he saw Zhang Ling coming in, he closed the door and pressed him against the wall. You liar! Daozi said, gritting his teeth. Brother Dao, what's the matter? Zhang Ling asked innocently. Wang Kai added, didn't you say that they like proactive men? Daozi and I were both standing behind them. As soon as we reached out our hands, they slapped us in the face. What is going on? Zhang Ling couldn't help laughing. Only then did he understand what had happened. Lin Xiyue and Xu Wanwan each left a kiss on his face in the elevator. This was what had happened. Brother Wang, that's what I said, you're right, but didn't I say before that it's because I'm handsome? Zhang Ling explained with a smile. Daozi let go at this time, and it made sense when he thought about it. He was just saying it casually. It was because I was greedy that I came up with such a trick. I deserve it. Forget it. We both admire you, but you have to treat us tonight, otherwise we will get slapped in vain. That's no problem. I'll treat you to dinner tonight. Zhang Ling agreed readily. After being busy for half a day in the afternoon, when it was time to get off work, Wang Kai informed other employees in the technical department that Zhang Ling would treat them to dinner in the evening. When someone invites you to dinner, how can you not go? 10 people in the technical department doing assembly and debugging were dancing with joy. Daozi even went to Minister Qian's office on purpose. The minister will have dinner with us tonight. You want to treat me to a meal? No, it's Zhang Ling who's treating us. Didn't you tell me yesterday that Zhang Ling is handsome? This is an opportunity. Minister Qian listened to Daozi's words and seemed to have other meanings, and immediately burst into laughter. You guys really understand women. Chapter 22. Daozi was drunk, really drunk. As he spoke, Minister Qian took out a bunch of car keys from his pocket and gently handed them to Daozi. In the parking lot, not in the basement, make no mistake. Daozi responded quickly, okay. He took the car keys, then turned around happily and walked back to the assembly room with brisk steps. At this moment, in the assembly room, a dozen colleagues were discussing travel arrangements. After all, with so many people going out to eat together, they can't all drive on their own. Daozi shook the commercial vehicle keys he had just received in his hand. You guys share a car. Xiao Song immediately stepped forward and said, then I'll drive. I never drink and I drive very steadily. Daozi nodded without hesitation, okay. Zhang Ling, Daozi and Minister Qian rode together in Wang Kai's car. As soon as the bell rang, everyone rushed to the parking lot. Lin Xiyue just came out of the basement. When she looked up, she saw a large group of people from the technical department gathered in the parking lot. His sharp eyes immediately caught sight of Zhang Ling in the crowd. When he saw Zhang Ling get into Wang Kai's car, he had a rough idea in his mind. Zhang Ling won more than 40,000 yuan in a bet today. Judging from the situation, he will treat everyone to dinner tonight. Har, not bad. It looks like the relationship is pretty good. Lin Xiyue muttered softly, then slowly drove past. Before 6 o'clock, a large group of people came to a Chinese restaurant. This restaurant is located in a corner of a bustling street in Jiangxia, and its exterior is decorated in an antique style. Walking into the restaurant, it is spacious and bright, with an elegant and grand decoration style. The large private room we booked was even more unique, with a set of high-end audio equipment placed on one side of the room. There is everything from singing to playing cards. Since Minister Qian had to go back to clean up, it was already 7:40 when they arrived at the restaurant. It is said that a person with great skills is also bold. For Daozi, this may be a bit too much, but no matter what, he is the team leader after all, and his execution ability is quite high. As soon as he entered the private room, Daozi strode to the song request desk as if he was at home, picked up the microphone, cleared his throat,
and started playing the Nyo Nyo Pai. First of all, I would like to thank our Minister Chen for attending the dinner tonight. I believe that under the leadership of Minister Chen, our technical department will always be a godlike presence in Jianghua. Next, I would like to thank Mr. Wang, my master, for helping us, the fledgling apprentices, to become real engineers. Let's applaud together. His voice echoed in the private room through the speakers, and suddenly, applause broke out, clapping. While Zhang Ling was clapping, he was secretly complaining in his heart. Tazi is really a flatterer. Although he won the money from the bet and paid for the dinner himself, Taz's praise made it seem as if he was the protagonist of the night. Just when Zhang Ling was feeling depressed, Tazi spoke again. Tonight, our colleague Zhang Ling is treating us. He's new here, and has spent a lot of money to get along well with everyone. Please feel free to order whatever you want to eat. When Zhang Ling heard this, his face changed instantly. Damn it! If there are more than 10 people and they all eat as much as they want, I'm afraid that 40,000 yuan won't be enough. The other colleagues were unaware of the bet between Zhang Ling and Taozi and just treated it as a normal treat between colleagues. Out of courtesy, everyone was polite and didn't want to order expensive things, so the dishes they ordered were around 100 yuan each. Afterwards, the waiter brought in a box of wudiangi and 4 or 5 boxes of beer. Before the dishes came, Xiaosong ordered a few songs and started swaying to the rhythm of the music. The atmosphere in the private room gradually became lively and cheerful. Tazi sneaked up to Wang Kai, leaned forward slightly, and his face was almost close to Wang Kai's ear. Brother Wang, I want to get that kid Zhang Ling drunk tonight. Minister Chen wants to sleep with him. Wang Kai was holding a cup of tea and was about to drink it. When he heard this, he choked and coughed violently a few times. He subconsciously looked at Minister Chen. Is this true? What bad idea have you come up with? Wang Kai asked with a frown. Taozi raised his eyebrows. It's not me who caused the trouble. Didn't you see the look in Minister Chen's eyes yesterday? Men and women are the same. I know that look very well. Wang Kai shook his head slightly. This isn't good. Taozi patted Wang Kai on the shoulder disapprovingly. Are you afraid that the man will suffer? I guess Zhang Ling will thank you tomorrow when he wakes up. This might be a good job for him. Wang Kai was amused by Taozi and burst into laughter. The noise was a bit loud, but Zhang Ling felt better when he saw Wang Kai laughing so happily. I was worried before that they would hate me after losing money, but now it seems that I was overthinking it. About 10 minutes later, the dishes began to be served. Taozi, like a conductor, arranged everyone to sit down in an orderly manner, and even specially asked Minister Chen and Zhang Ling to sit together. Then he sat right next to Minister Chen, and that position was arranged with ulterior motives. Because Wang Kai and Xiaosong had to drive, they could only drink tea instead of wine. As soon as the food was served, and no one had taken a bite yet, Taozi couldn't wait to raise his glass and stand up. Come on, let's clink glasses together. We won't go home until we're drunk tonight. After saying that, he was the first to extend his glass to the middle. Seeing this, the others. They also raised their wine glasses or teacups and clinked them together, and the atmosphere in the private room was pushed to a small climax. Zhang Ling took a sip and then frowned. This wine tastes spicy in the throat and is not as refreshing and pleasant as the homemade wine in my hometown. Taozi saw his expression and laughed. Why? Do you think the degree is too high? No, maybe I'm not used to drinking it. Zhang Ling hurriedly explained. What's wrong with this wine? It's over $1,000 a bottle, but it's good wine. Brother Dao, when I go back to my hometown one day, I will bring you 2 bottles of our hometown specialty for you to try. Taozi smiled disdainfully. What good wine can you find in your hometown? Beef wine. As soon as he said this, everyone at the table burst into laughter. Zhang Ling also laughed. He knew that the unique flavor of the mare's milk wine in his hometown was only loved by people on the grassland. For these colleagues who are used to strong liquor, this may not really be considered a good wine. Soon, under the influence of alcohol, everyone at the table drank happily. Minister Chen was originally drinking white wine, but now he saw Zhang Ling drinking a bottle of white wine and still chatting freely. He gave Taozi a look calmly. Taozi understood what he meant and immediately picked up the wine glass. With a smile on his face, he said to Zhang Ling, let's drink again. As the saying goes, 1,000 cups are not enough when you are with a good friend, but a single word is too much when you are with a stranger. You can drink a lot.
Brother Dao, you can drink quite a lot. We drink the most between the two of us. Zhang Ling responded politely, and then he drank another glass of wine in one gulp. At this time, he had already drunk about 1.2 gin 55 grams of liquid. After Tazi took a sip, he felt his stomach churning and he left the table and ran to the bathroom. Minister Qian saw the opportunity and picked up a bottle of beer and poured a glass for Zhang Ling. Xiao Zhang, drink some beer to moisten your throat. Zhang Ling didn't think much about it and drank another glass of beer. The cool feeling sliding down his throat made him feel quite refreshed. At this moment, Xiao Song's voice suddenly came from the direction of the bathroom. Taozi is almost vomiting, why don't I take him to the hospital? When Minister Qian saw this, he decided not to drink any more. If he continued drinking like this, everyone in the technical department would probably be absent from work tomorrow. So she cleared her throat and said, let's stop here tonight. Look how happy Taozi is drinking. Yes. Taozi was laughing while vomiting, someone echoed. Zhang Ling didn't dare to continue drinking with them. He was really afraid of making someone else drunk like Taozi. Minister Qian, I'll go down and pay the bill. I'll stay with you. I'm still a little sober. Minister Qian said. Good. The two came to the front desk and the cashier told them that the total consumption was 9,006. The proprietress happened to pass by and saw that Zhang Ling was handsome and took a liking to him. Give this handsome guy a little extra. Chapter 23 Minister Qian miscalculates and gets into the wrong bed. Chen Guang picks up the spoils. At this time, Xiao Song walked out with Taozi supported by his support with great effort. I'll help him get in the car first. If he vomits again, we'll have to go to the hospital. Taozi's face was as pale as paper, without a trace of life. The whole person exudes a sense of weakness and powerlessness. However, his stubborn character did not change at all. Even though his body was in such a drunken state, he still refused to admit that he had drunk too much. Hey! Why do you keep shaking me? I was fine before, but now I have to get a concussion from you guys. Taozi complained incoherently, trying to find a far-fetched excuse for his stumbling. After hearing this, Xiao Song helplessly grabbed Taozi's hair and said anxiously, Taozi, I didn't shake you. Look at yourself, you can't even keep your head steady. Let me help you get in the car first. Taozi didn't say anything more. As soon as he got into the car, he seemed to have lost consciousness and fell into a deep sleep. Zhang Ling's condition was not much better. He staggered out of the door and when the cold wind blew, he felt a sudden sharp pain on his forehead. He forced himself to get into the car despite the discomfort. As soon as he sat down, he closed his eyes tiredly and took a short nap for a while. I feel it's quite comfortable to keep it this way. Brother Wang, your seat cushion is nice and soft. Wang Kai turned his head and almost laughed. Are you doing this on purpose? How can you not be soft when you rely on Minister Qian like that? Not knowing how much time had passed, Zhang Ling was half asleep and half awake when he heard her gentle voice, Xiao Zhang, we're at the youth apartment. Oh. Zhang Ling responded in a daze, his consciousness not yet fully awake. After getting off the car, Zhang Ling felt like his feet were stepping on cotton and his feet were floating. He just turned around and wanted to greet Wen Kai loudly, but found that Minister Qian had quietly come to his side. Minister Qian said with concern, Sister, I have to send you home, otherwise I will be worried. Zhang Ling's head was dizzy at the moment, and he just responded instinctively, It's okay, Minister Qian, I'm already downstairs, just go upstairs. Still, let me take you there. Minister Qian insisted. Zhang Ling felt a warm feeling in his heart. In this euphoric state, he just felt that it was a gratifying thing to have such care from his leader, and he didn't think about anything else. Zhang Kai, who was sitting in the car, looked at the two people outside the car and couldn't help but muttered quietly, Minister Qian is also drunk. Look at the way she walks, she is not as steady as Zhang Ling. Thinking of this, he felt that this was not a good idea. He was worried that if a drunk person helped another drunk person and they accidentally fell, both of them would be unable to take care of themselves. So he opened the car door without hesitation and prepared to get out to help. At this moment, Taozi suddenly spoke. Brother Wang, where are you going? I'll go check it out. Taozi said with a half smile, So do you want to see Minister Qian stay with Zhang Ling? When Wang Kai heard this, he was shocked. The situation was indeed a little subtle. After hesitating for a moment. How about we wait in the car for a while? If Minister Chen doesn't come out in half an hour, we'll leave. Tauzi said nonchalantly, what are you waiting for? Minister Chen got himself drunk and didn't plan to leave. Didn't I tell you in advance? Wang Kai was right in thinking that Minister Chen went back to take a shower and change clothes, probably because he had this in mind. Tauzi, are you sober? Tauzi replied nonchalantly, oh. You will feel better after vomiting. Do you think I am drunk and stupid? Let's go. Wang Kai looked up at the dim lights in the apartment corridor. It seemed that the two people should have arrived safely. Although he was still a little worried, he didn't want to ruin other people's good fortune, so he drove away. The moment Zhang Ling opened the door, the morning light in the room was startled. Chen Guang was half lying on the sofa in his baggy shorts, watching Zhang Ling staggering in with a woman. And she was a woman with a mature charm. She couldn't help but blurt out in surprise, Zhang Ling, why did you bring a woman back? Zhang Ling hurriedly explained, Chen Guang, this is my leader, Sister Qian. Sister Qian. Chen Guang's eyes met Minister Qian's, and his heart suddenly beat rapidly, as if something had gently touched his heart. He looked at Minister Qian and was secretly amazed in his heart. Even after being drunk, her eyes still exuded a charming charm. It makes people want to take a few more glances. Minister Qian pointed at the morning light dazedly and asked Zhang Ling, Xiao Zhang, he is. Zhang Ling half-jokingly said, he is my roommate Lu Chengwang, he likes women like you. After hearing this, Minister Qian laughed. However, she was secretly upset in her heart, as she didn't expect that there was someone else in Zhang Ling's family. Now I feel weak all over, my legs are powerless, and I'm afraid I can't walk anymore. Chen Guang's brain started working rapidly at this moment. He looked at Zhang Ling, feeling both surprised and excited. Zhang Ling is really nice. He said in the morning that he would introduce a rich woman to me, but I didn't expect that he would bring her back in the evening, and even got himself drunk like this. As he thought about it, he stood up and walked over. He reached out to support Zhang Ling and Minister Qian, and carefully asked them to sit down first. Then he hurried to the kitchen, made 2 cups of tea, and gently placed them on the table. Then, he leaned closer to Zhang Ling's ear and asked shyly, this is too sudden. I feel a little embarrassed. Zhang Ling's head was so dizzy at this time that he didn't hear what Chen Qingguang said at all. He just replied casually, sorry, I'm going to sleep first. As he spoke, Zhang Ling walked cautiously to the bed and lay down. Chen Guang turned his head to look at Minister Qian, only to see her lying there, seemingly asleep. He shook his head, wondering what to do. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to rearrange his bed and put on a clean new quilt. Since Zhang Ling introduced her to me, then maybe she will become my girlfriend in the future. He walked to Minister Qian, gently picked her up, and walked towards his bed. Minister Qian vaguely felt that he was picked up by someone, but because he was drunk, he was too weak to open his eyes and could only let the morning light put him on the bed. Chen Guang stared at Minister Qian, who was lying on his bed. As his eyes wandered over her, his thoughts gradually drifted away. Minister Qian is Zhang Ling's boss and is still single. Perhaps it is because he is too picky that he ends up being left alone. He thought to himself that although he couldn't take advantage of someone's misfortune, it would be a wonderful thing to start an unforgettable relationship with such a mature and charming woman. Just as he was immersed in his reverie, Minister Qian's hand slowly reached out to him and gently stroked his face. Chen Guang couldn't help but shudder all over, this was too proactive. We haven't even had basic communication yet. Falling in love should be a gradual process after all. At this time, Minister Qian's vision was blurry and his consciousness was a little fuzzy. In a trance, he thought that the person in front of him was Zhang Ling. The warm scene of Zhang Ling sleeping peacefully on his shoulder in the car emerged in his mind. The feeling was so beautiful and comfortable. Her fingers gently caressed Chen Guang's face, and she could truly feel the firmness and vitality that were unique to young people. I can't help but sigh, it's great to be young, full of collagen. The corners of her mouth slightly raised, and she said with a hint of resentment, Har har, why are you still standing there looking at me? I'm like this, don't you understand my feelings? When Chen Guang heard this, he felt that the progress was faster than he had imagined, and he suddenly felt a little flustered. He was afraid that Zhang Ling would burst into the room after waking up, so he got up in a hurry, quickly locked the door, then returned to the bed and approached Minister Qian. Sister Qian, I'm here. Chapter 24 Zhang Ling feels that Chen Guang is awesome. In the apartment building,
Even at 6 o'clock in the morning, the weak light could only struggle in the corridor.
Minister Chen woke up slowly. His consciousness was still in chaos, but his body moved first and turned over. When she looked at Chen Qingguan's back, the corners of her mouth rose unconsciously. He really has some skills. There were some fragments of last night in her mind. Although they were hazy, they made her face blush. She sat up gently, trying to be as gentle as possible so as not to disturb Chen Guang, who was still sleeping, and then began to dress and get out of bed. She tiptoed to the door, opened it, and looked towards the living room. I saw Zhang Ling sleeping soundly on the sofa, his clothes still on, his hair slightly messy and scattered on both sides of his cheeks. Minister Chen was stunned, then she suddenly turned her head to look at the morning light on the bed. In an instant, her mind was struck by lightning. Oh my God! I slept with the wrong person. Her heartbeat suddenly quickened, her breathing became rapid, and an indescribable panic and embarrassment surged into her heart. She took a deep breath, bent down to pick up her high heels from the ground, and walked out carefully, taking every step extremely cautiously. Only after she closed the door gently did she quickly put on her shoes and hurried downstairs, feeling relieved. The crisp sound of high heels hitting the stairs echoed in the silent corridor, just like her panicked heartbeat at the moment. Zhang Ling was awakened from his sleep by the alarm on his cell phone. He groped for his phone beside his pillow in a daze, picked it up and took a look. It was 6:30. He stretched lazily, then stood up and went to the bathroom to wash up. While brushing his teeth, his thoughts began to slowly return. It seems like it was Minister Chen who sent me back. After washing up, he walked out of the bathroom while wiping his face with a towel, and inadvertently saw that the door of the room was slightly open in the morning light. Out of curiosity, he subconsciously glanced inside. Oh my God! When did this guy like to sleep naked? Chen Guang, still sleeping. How was your job search yesterday? Chen Guang was immersed in a sweet dream when he was suddenly awakened by Zhang Ling's voice. He looked up. The first reaction was to cover my body with a blanket. How did you get in? How did I get in? I just walked in. Chen Guang gradually woke up. He calmly looked around and found that Minister Chen was nowhere to be seen. I thought Sister Chen must have left early. Oh, it's okay. I thought my girlfriend was asleep, so I was nervous for a moment. Girlfriend? Hasn't that thing always been hanging in your closet? Zhang Ling teased. What? The Sister Chen you brought back last night is my girlfriend now. Chen Guang said seriously. There was still a hint of pride on his face. When Zhang Ling heard this, all his thoughts stopped working at this moment. Can you speak a little more clearly? When Chen Guang saw Zhang Ling's expression, he was also very puzzled. What kind of expression did Zhang Ling have? It was as if he had seen a ghost. Didn't you say yesterday that you would introduce me to a rich woman? Zhang Ling thought about it carefully and realized that yes, he had indeed said that. Then what? What then? Didn't you bring her back last night? I carried her to the bed to rest. She touched my face and said she liked me. Damn it, I thought I liked her a lot, so I went to sleep. Chen Guang described the scene of last night vividly, with a happy smile on his face. When Zhang Ling heard this, his heart was like a storm. Minister Chen didn't leave last night. What's more, Chen Guang even slept with her. Oh my goodness, was this a one-night stand? Awesome. Awesome. Chen Guang, are you sure she likes you? Zhang Ling tried to confirm again. What are you talking about? Didn't you say you would introduce it to me? I saw that she was quite affectionate towards me, she took the initiative to kiss me, and I couldn't push her away. Chen Guang said confidently. Zhang Ling scratched his head subconsciously, perhaps this was love at first sight. It's the same if my wife likes me. I went home with her and met her parents on the night of getting the marriage certificate. Oh, okay. I have to hurry up, my e-mule is at the company, and I need to take a taxi. Zhang Ling, what's her name? Chen Guang suddenly asked. Sister, you two slept together last night, and you didn't ask. I forgot. Chen Guang smiled awkwardly. Zhang Ling looked at Chen Guang and saw that he was full of admiration for him, but after thinking about it, he didn't seem to ask. After a little thought, he found an excuse. Why don't you meet up someday and talk to each other? I think this is better. Well, you have a point. Okay, then I'm leaving. Tomorrow is Saturday, and I might have to move out. When Chen Guang heard this, he thought, wouldn't this be very convenient in the future? So he quickly responded, okay, I'm going to the interview today. Good. Zhang Ling hurried downstairs and quickly bought a hand-pulled pancake from a street food stall. Then he took a taxi and rushed towards the company. Sitting in the car, Zhang Ling's mind couldn't calm down. Minister Chen stayed here last night, and Wang Kai and Taozi must know about this. These two people like to chat in the company on weekdays. If Lin Xiyue finds out, it will cause a misunderstanding. Aren't all the plots in those novels like this? There's a chance to explain, but one doesn't. Then when one wants to explain, the other one starts crying and says he doesn't want to listen. Thinking of this, Zhang Ling immediately sent a message to Lin Xiyue. My wife is in big trouble. Minister Chen drank too much at dinner last night and insisted on sending me home. He stayed with me and was slept with by my roommate. When this message was sent, Lin Xiyue just arrived downstairs of the company. He was also surprised when he saw the message and replied to Zhang Ling as soon as he parked the car. So what were you doing? Oh my god. My wife is doubting me. Wife, I drank too much last night, I didn't even know about it, it was my roommate who told me this morning. Okay, you're smart. If you hadn't told me in advance, I would have thought you were playing in a duo. What is double row? Zhang Ling also added 2 emoticons. Lin Xiyue laughed so hard that tears almost came out when she read Zhang Ling's message. It's okay, husband. I'm at the company. How about you? I'm almost at the company, and I've been thinking about this all the way. If someone says something wrong, it would be offensive to you, and it would hurt you. Har har, good. My little husband is really sensible. Chapter 25. Taozi is really a big mouth. Zhang Ling felt relieved now. After all, he had read quite a few tomato novels and had some experience in this area, which was how to avoid pitfalls. Anything that causes harm to yourself must be explained clearly in advance. Didi was parked near the company gate. After Zhang Ling got out of the car, he subconsciously glanced at the guard room. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people going to work in the company, he really wanted to go in and say hello to his father-in-law. When Zhang Ling arrived at the department and just walked to the door of the assembly room, he heard 2 people whispering inside. Is it true? You said Minister Chen sent Zhang Ling back last night and never came out again, someone asked curiously. Why would I lie to you? Zhang Ling heard that their voice was obviously Taozi's, and he was eager to prove the authenticity of his words, so his voice rose a few notches. The other person was Xiao Song, who continued to ask questions foolishly. Can Zhang Ling bear it? Har har, who knows? I guess I'll take today off. No wonder I ran into her when I entered the company gate this morning and saw that her face was rosy. So this is what happened. Minister Chen has been single for so long and has a bad temper. As a subordinate, of course I have to care about him. Har har. Okay, don't tell anyone else about this. Yes, definitely. At this moment, Zhang Ling coughed deliberately and then walked in. With a faint smile, his eyes scanned the 2 of them. What's the matter? You guys are laughing so happily. Taozi was obviously stunned. He didn't know whether Zhang Ling had heard what he had just said. He forced a smile. It's okay, har har. After saying that, he picked up the car keys and walked away in a hurry. Xiao Song was also afraid of saying something wrong, so he quickly turned his head, picked up a drawing and began to look at it attentively. Zhang Ling secretly felt lucky that he had informed his wife in advance, otherwise if the news was passed on by these guys, the consequences would be disastrous. He shook his head and walked towards the locker room. Before entering the locker room, people inside were still talking about this matter. What is particularly interesting is that the man deliberately raised his voice after he finished speaking. Don't talk nonsense about this. I promised Brother Dao not to tell anyone. Zhang Ling shook his head after hearing this. The information spread faster than he had expected. Originally, I thought that only Wang Kai and Taozi knew about it, but now after counting, including myself, there are already 6 or 7 people who know about it. At this rate, it won't be long before the information spreads throughout the company. Taozi, you are such a big mouth. You will be slapped sooner or later. Taozi ran to Minister Chen's office happily and knocked on the door. Minister Qian's voice came from inside the door. Come in. Taozi pushed the door open and walked in, with a flattering smile on his face. Minister Qian, I'll return your car keys to you. Minister Qian said without even raising his head. Put it on the table. Taozi smiled and said, Minister Qian, you look very good today. Are you satisfied with last night? It would be fine if we don't mention this, but as soon as Minister Qian is mentioned, he gets furious and talks about what a bad idea he came up with. It's really a case of losing the rice while trying to steal the chicken. But she quickly calmed down, thinking that Zhang Ling was sleeping soundly, and only his roommate knew about this, and the other party didn't know his own background, so he just had to deny it. I drank a lot of wine last night and felt very high. It's been a long time since I drank like that. Minister Qian said calmly. Taozi joked without restraint. Har har, Minister Qian, you're feeling ecstatic. You must be in his bed. Minister Qian's face suddenly darkened. He slowly stood up from his chair and walked in front of Taozi. Jiang Haitao, you know me well, don't you? Minister Qian, what are you saying? Minister Qian gave Taozi a loud slap in the face with his backhand. Taozi was stunned by the beating. Minister Qian, why did you hit me? Taozi asked aggrievedly, covering his beaten face. You can't spit out ivory from a dog's mouth, so whose bed is it on? Minister Qian's eyes were wide open with anger. Taozi was a little confused. Minister Qian had a moody personality, but he seemed fine just now. Could it be that Zhang Ling drank too much and got impotent? Didn't you send Zhang Ling back last night? And you didn't come out? Taozi bravely asked tentatively. Minister Qian asked back, how long have you been waiting for me outside? Taozi covered his face, fearing that he would be beaten by Minister Qian again, and answered carefully, yesterday, I told you that, so Brother Wang and I didn't wait for you. When we saw you go upstairs, we left. After hearing this, Minister Qian felt relieved and said confidently, who asked you to leave? I sent Zhang Ling home without even a glass of water, and when I came out there was no car on the roadside. Taozi exclaimed, then immediately stepped forward and said apologetically, Then how did you get back? There was another pop sound, and another big slap came over. Take a taxi back. It's more expensive. Do you think I'll stay at Xiao Zhang's place overnight? Taozi opened her mouth wide. She was in trouble now. Why did she lose her aunt last night? I'm sorry, Minister Qian, for the poor arrangements. I hope you don't mind me. I'm your dog, and I'm here whenever you call. Taozi said with a nod and a bow. Chen Bu felt that this was about enough and waved his hand impatiently. Okay, go get busy. Yeah, okay. Taozi hurriedly walked out of Minister Qian's office. He closed the door and walked away while touching his face, which was burning from being beaten. Oh my God. Why are you pretending? You've already had fun and you're still refusing to pay. This is just like destroying the bridge after crossing it. When they arrived at the assembly room, Wang Kai saw that everyone else was debugging there, and immediately pointed at Taozi. You are going to take credit, right? Har har. Seeing Wang Kai smiling so sweetly, Taozi sat down aside with a sad face. Brother Wang, don't mention it. He was slapped twice and it still hurts. Hey, what's going on? That old woman refused to admit it and insisted that she came out after we left and that we didn't wait for her. Wang Kai felt something was wrong. Minister Qian was so drunk last night, how could she still come out? Taozi, you'd better keep your mouth shut about this matter, otherwise your future will be difficult. What should we do then? You didn't tell anyone else, did you? If you did, find a way to smooth things over. Even if it's water you spilled, you have to lick it back for me. It's not that serious, is it? Brother Wang. Wang Kai thought for a moment and came to a conclusion. There are only two possibilities if Minister Qian does not want to admit this matter. Chapter 26 Hidden Secrets. Taozi urged Wang Kai anxiously, Brother Wang, just say whatever you think. You are really going to drive me crazy if you keep hesitating like this. Wang Kai remained calm and squinted his eyes, muttering to himself, if Minister Qian didn't leave last night, something unusual must have happened. But if you didn't keep it, and you just randomly guess and spread it everywhere, that would be spreading rumors, and you should know the consequences very well. Taozi raised his voice impatiently, then tell me, did she stay last night or not? Wang Kai crossed his arms over his chest and shook his head, it's hard to say. In this situation, let's just wait and see. When Taozi heard this, he became furious and turned around and left angrily. You still don't know what's going on. You're just being mysterious here. He wanted to go to the debugging area to check the situation, but saw Zhang Ling walk into the elevator. Taozi became curious and immediately asked someone, "What is Zhang Ling doing?" Xiaosong had a meaningful smile on his face and said softly, "It seems that Minister Qian is looking for him. It seems that he is going to reminisce about the past." Minister Qian sat in his office and hesitated for a long time. "I stayed at Zhang Ling's place last night, so I'm sure Zhang Ling already knows what happened. After all, with this kind of thing, you can fool yourself but you can't fool others." Suddenly, a knock on the door broke the silence in the room. Minister Qian quickly sat up straight, cleared his throat and said, "Come in." Zhang Ling pushed open the door, with a nonchalant expression on his face, and asked, "Minister Qian, are you looking for me?" Minister Qian tried to make his voice sound calmer. "Sit down and talk." "Okay." Zhang Ling sat down as he was told. Minister Qian was silent for a moment, thinking that it would be better to talk about this matter clearly, otherwise it would be like covering one's ears and stealing a bell, and in the end it would just be a slap in one's own face. So, she slowly asked, "How old is your roommate?" Zhang Ling wondered, could it be that Minister Qian was having a one-night stand last night? It seems that Chen Guang is still quite capable. He blinked and replied, "Oh, Chen Guang is the same age as me, but he particularly likes mature women and has always wanted to find an older sister as his girlfriend." When Minister Qian heard this, his face flushed slightly and he began to stutter, "Yes, yes." "Is he a sports student?" "No, he and I have the same major, so what?" Minister Qian's eyes flickered for a moment, and he whispered, "Nothing. You must have known about what happened last night. He is very powerful. Please help me make an appointment when you have time." "Hey. Chen Guang is really good." "No problem, Minister Qian." "Well, there's nothing else, but you have to keep this matter confidential." Minister Qian warned with a serious expression. "Don't worry, I'm very tight-lipped." Zhang Ling responded solemnly, but he thought in his heart that this matter was quite complicated. However, since he had agreed, he might as well do it this way for now. After saying that, Zhang Ling walked out of the office and his cell phone suddenly vibrated. He picked up his phone and saw that 10,000 yuan had been deposited into his account. "Hey! He still gave me money even though I said it's not necessary. Dad is really something. He's always worried that I'll suffer outside." Before Zhang Ling could look up, he was dragged into another office. He was about to scream, but his mouth was blocked by someone. Zhang Ling looked closely and found it was Xu Wanwan. He couldn't help but feel a little surprised. "Her hands smell good, but what are you doing in broad daylight? What are you doing?" Xu Wanwan let go of her hand and Lin Xiyue walked over from the side. "Minister Qian was looking for you just now." Zhang Ling was stunned. Minister Qian had come to see him, and he just came out of her office. "I haven't done anything to let you down." So I quickly replied, "Yes, wife." Lin Xiyue pressed her hands against the wall and put her face close to Zhang Ling to look at him. "What did you say?" Zhang Ling's heart tightened. "Damn. Is my wife jealous?" "Wife, please don't misunderstand me. Minister Qian came to me to ask about my roommate and asked me to help her make another appointment." After hearing what Zhang Ling said, Lin Xiyue laughed out loud as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. Zhang Ling finally breathed a sigh of relief. Minister Qian's words fell on deaf ears. At this time, Xu Wanwan came over again. "We agreed that if you win the bet, you have to buy me a gift," Xu Wanwan said with a smile. Only then did Zhang Ling realize that his wife and Xu Wanwan were just joking with him. "Tomorrow is Saturday. Let's go shopping together, but you have to help me move." "Har har, okay, Mr. Zhang." After Xu Wanwan said that, she stood with Lin Xiyue. Zhang Ling looked at them and felt a strange feeling. These two people were obviously in a superior-subordinate relationship, but how come they acted like sisters? It doesn't matter at ordinary times, and it's just like this at the company. I'm not afraid of being suspected and accused of the two of them. Forget it, I don't want to think about it, as long as my wife is happy. "Wife, it's nothing, I'll go down now." Lin Xiyue responded, "Okay, but you have to stay with me tonight." Zhang Ling looked back and smiled, his eyes full of tenderness. "Well, I miss you too." Xu Wanwan smiled secretly from the side,
watching the interaction between the young couple and found it very interesting. After Zhang Ling left, Lin Xiyue breathed a sigh of relief, and a thoughtful look appeared on her delicate face. Then, she walked to the office desk, sat down lightly, and reached out to take out a document from the drawer. Lin Xiyue raised her head slightly and her eyes fell on Xu Wanwan. Wanwan, how was the follow-up with that client last time? Xu Wanwan pursed her lips lightly and quickly replied, I have already made an appointment for you to visit the branch office next Monday at 9 in the morning. Lin Xiyue nodded slightly. Okay, you go ask Director Chen to make the arrangements. The technical department needs to select 2 people. Among them, we should arrange for Zhang Ling. After all, the client is from Kyoto, so it would be good for him to see the world and gain more experience. When talking about Zhang Ling, Lin Xiyue's eyes unconsciously revealed a hint of tenderness and doting. Well, I'll go right away. Xu Wanwan responded crisply and turned to walk towards the door. When she reached the office door, Xu Wanwan reached out, grasped the door handle, and gently pushed the door open. With half of her body still inside the room, she suddenly turned her head. Actually, we shouldn't have kept it from him. Well, go get busy first. Good. Lin Xiyue raised her head and stretched her shoulders. She felt that there were some things that she should not hide from Zhang Ling. After all, Zhang Ling was now her legal husband. Maybe Zhang Ling will understand and tolerate himself. Zhang Ling, my little husband, would you care that I used to be? Lin Xiyue suddenly shook her head. She was afraid that Zhang Ling would not be able to accept this. But no matter what, that was in the past. And, Xu Wanwan has already arrived at Minister Qian's office. Minister Qian, next week a client from Kyoto will come to visit. Please select 2 people from the technical department to accompany General Manager Lin. Minister Qian is not stupid. President Lin must have a purpose in asking Xu Wanwan to find him, and it seems that the target is Zhang Ling. After all, Zhang Ling was recruited by General Manager Lin himself, so we should give him this face. I guess General Manager Lin is interested in him too. Hey! They say that the one who is near water gets the moon first. Okay, I'll arrange it. Good. Secretary Xu, Zhang Ling. Chapter 27. It turns out that she is the Sea King. It seems that what Sister Xia said was right. Minister Qian was serious last night, but she didn't expect that Zhang Ling's roommate got there first. Minister Qian, I almost forgot to take care of you. Don't let him have any ideas about her. She's already taken. When Xu Wanwan said this, her eyes were fixed on Minister Qian. Minister Qian nodded subconsciously, with a slightly embarrassed expression on his face. Don't worry, Secretary Xu, I understand. Only after seeing Xu Wanwan leave did Minister Qian breathe a sigh of relief. His shoulders sank slightly and he slowly sat down. How could I have forgotten about this? Mr. Lin is also single. It turns out there was such a thing going on. Fortunately, I didn't sleep with Zhang Ling last night. I thought I was just taking care of the people hired personally by General Manager Lin, but now it seems I have to take even more careful care of them. Minister Qian sighed helplessly, stood up, straightened the wrinkles of his clothes, and went to the assembly room. In the assembly room, Tauzi was busy testing the new machine with full concentration. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead and his eyes were fixed on the instrument. The branch will soon go into production, and before that, a series of problems need to be identified and eliminated and changed. I'm busy. When Tauzi heard their voice, he looked up and saw Minister Qian. He immediately put down the tools in his hands and quickly walked over to him. Minister Qian, I have re-debugged it and it is running smoothly after the upgrade. Minister Qian nodded in satisfaction, and after hesitating for a moment, he said to Tauzi, next Monday, I will ask Zhang Ling and Xiao Song to go on a business trip. Do you have any objections? The smile on Tauzi's face froze instantly. Which employee in the company doesn't want to go on business trips? 1 day's travel expenses are equivalent to 10 days' salary. In the past, whenever there was an errand, Minister Qian would arrange it for himself. Why this time? Minister Qian. Xiao Song, I can understand, but Zhang Ling just arrived. It's because he just arrived, so I need to take special care of him. You are the team leader now, and there are still many things for you to do in the company. Tauzi pursed his lips slightly, but still reluctantly agreed, well, I'll follow the minister's arrangements. Damn. It seems that they slept together last night. They like new things and hate old things.
I have licked you for so long, I know your preferences, and I have created opportunities for you. Oh. At lunchtime, Tazi looked at Zhang Ling and Xiao Song and cleared his throat. Let me tell you something. Minister Chen will arrange a business trip for you two next Monday. Zhang Ling had just put a mouthful of rice into his mouth, but when he heard the news, he stopped chewing. I was able to go on a business trip just a few days after arriving. It seems that Minister Chen is taking special care of me. In this case, it is only natural to help her make connections. It just so happened that Chen Guang was also still thinking about her, and perhaps there was still some time for them to get used to each other. After all, last night was just a one-night stand. We need to think carefully about how to deal with this matter. Zhang Ling, what are you thinking about? Did you have a good time last night? Zhang Ling raised his head and looked at Taozi, only to see gossip flashing in Taozi's eyes. This guy must be wondering if anything happened between him and Minister Chen last night. This matter must never be made public, and I told my wife that I had no choice but to do so. But facing Taozi, he didn't want to explain too much. I drank too much last night and slept all night without taking a shower. Zhang Ling's eyes were calm and his expression was natural. No story. Taozi frowned. Everyone is asleep, what story is there? Zhang Ling looked at Taozi innocently, his eyes were calm, without any evasion. Taozi saw that Zhang Ling did not seem to be lying, but he felt that he seemed to be hiding something. Taozi sighed, a trace of resentment appearing on his face. Hey! Some women like young handsome men. When I first came here, I was also young. Now I am old and ugly, so I won't mention it anymore. Oh my god! What does Taozi mean? He would not have anything to do with Minister Chen. Zhang Ling was a little curious and looked Taozi up and down. Taozi, how old are you this year? I'm 28 this year. No way. Taozi, you look a little anxious. What do you know? I wasn't like this before. I became like this after I came to the company. Taozi scratched his hair with his hands, and a few strands of hair were messed up by him. Zhang Ling's gaze shifted to Xiao Song again, and he saw that Xiao Song's hair was sparse, and the scalp on top of his head was faintly visible. Do all those who do PLC lose their hair? This job isn't that tiring, is it? Seeing that Zhang Ling still looked confused, Taozi shook his head. You will know in the future. Minister Chen is nice to newcomers, but in 1 or 2 years at most, you will still lose your hair by then. Zhang Ling was shocked, and some strange thoughts flashed through his mind. Damn it, what does Taozi mean by this? Could it be that both he and Xiao Song had slept with Minister Chen before? This is too much. If that's what he meant, how can the morning light be absorbed? Or maybe Taozi is a narrow-minded person, and said such things because he saw that he was arranged to go on a business trip. Xiao Song noticed that Zhang Ling's expression changed instantly and laughed out loud without any hesitation. Anyway, Taozi has made his point clear, so it is understandable that Zhang Ling chooses not to respond. Zhang Ling, I know in my heart that you actually care about this matter very much. We are all experienced people and we understand it. Xiao Song tilted his head slightly, staring at Zhang Ling. Without waiting for Zhang Ling to speak, Xiao Song looked around for a while, made sure Minister Chen was not around, and muttered a few words in a low voice. You know, Minister Chen is a sea king. Har har, he's affectionate everywhere, and his relationships are so complicated. Zhang Ling's heart skipped a beat and he couldn't help feeling guilty. If I really introduced such a woman to Chen Guang, wouldn't it be a huge disaster for Chen Guang? It seems that this matter cannot be taken lightly. What are you talking about? I'm so confused and I didn't understand a word you said. Zhang Ling pretended to be stupid on purpose. He really didn't want to continue discussing this topic. So he picked up the bowl and chopsticks and started eating with big mouthfuls. In a short while, he had eaten up all the food on his plate. Taozi and Xiao Song looked at each other knowingly. Okay, that's it for today. Let's stop here. At this time, Xiao Song teased Taozi. You are not jealous. Why are you jealous? Don't forget that you have been a bootlicker too. Taozi retorted unhappily. Zhang Ling didn't want to pay attention to it, so he stood up and left with his plate. But how can I explain this to Chen Guang? After thinking for an entire afternoon, Zhang Ling still couldn't find a suitable reason. It was almost time to get off work when Zhang Ling accidentally heard others talking about it in the smoking area. Minister Chen is a youth killer.
As long as a young man comes to the company, she will definitely find a way to get him. Several boyfriends I had dated before were unable to control her, and no one dared to be serious with her for fear of being cuckolded. Zhang Ling's eyes lit up. Chen Guang, whether you can control this horse depends on you.